Hey everyone, you're listening to the official podcast of 4playernetwork.com. Check us out at that address for everything you need to know about our community, monthly giveaways, and nightly live streams. You can even support us on Patreon at patreon.com/4player. And last but not least, you can catch the live recordings of these podcasts every single Thursday night on our Twitch channel. We hope to see you there. Enjoy. Welcome to 4Player Podcast. This is episode 715. It is March 31st, 2022. I'm your host, Nick Henderson, and I'm joined tonight by Brad Simons.
Hello.
That was weird. Nolan Hedstrom.
He did that for a reason, but
my voice is a little higher now.
Oh, the balls thing. Right, which now nobody's going to have context for because we had that entire conversation off the recording. Anyways, Chris Davis is joining us as well.
I am here. My balls are fine. Thank you.
It's good to know. And Crispy.
Hello.
How are your balls?
I don't want to talk about my balls. I don't want to talk about your balls. Can we?
I guess that's fair. Welcome to the show, everybody. We have a lot to talk about tonight. We got Ghostwire Tokyo. We got Tunic. We got the new PlayStation Plus. We got Kirby and the Forgotten Land. We got all kinds of stuff to talk about. Before we get too far, Chris Davis has asked me that I remind you that if you haven't been paying attention, we finally uploaded the entirety of our most recent Project M to YouTube. About 2.5 years late. But it's available in its entirety in 2 parts on our YouTube channel. So check that out. We played Resident Evil 4. We raced through Resident Evil 4.
No, we didn't. We didn't race. We did a points competition. I raced, and I got punished for it.
Oh, that's
you
right.
didn't read the rules.
It was a surprise.
There was a big bonus for finishing first.
Yeah, there was.
Damn.
There were also a lot of bonuses for a lot of other objectives.
Man, I forgot about the point system.
I don't really remember a whole lot about the end of that race, but I went back and was browsing through the videos last night, and I was a little dismayed at how much of the progress bar is just me at the end there. Like, just me just struggling to, like, stay conscious playing Resident Evil 4.
Well, somehow these Project M's can keep being, like, games that Crispy is playing for the first time.
Yeah.
The first one was Mario 64. That was your first time playing that, am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Yeah. And when we did that little mini one between you and me with Super Metroid, that was the first time I played that.
Crispy's drawing the short straw. I think if we do a Project M ever again, we should just by default just let Crispy choose. Be like, none of us are involved.
What would be the game that you know like the back of your hand that you could own us all in?
Oh.
Well, most of us. He'd probably still lose to Nolan, I guess.
I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I don't know why, but my instinct is to say that fucking Game Boy Mario game, Mario Land.
7 coins?
Yeah, the 7 golden coins.
6 golden coins. Come on.
6 golden coins. Yeah. I mean, but that's why that instinct is probably a bad one because I haven't played that since I was like 12. You know.
Well, you never know. That would be a fun experiment because Crispy has consistently drawn the short straw in terms of like the games we're playing for these things. So if we ever circle back around and do it,
but has marked 3 very big bucket list games off my list. So like,
it's true.
I had a lot of fun every time. It was great.
Wonderful. Well, if you missed it, go check it out. We recorded this back in 2019. It was a great day. It was a lot of fun. We raised a bunch of money for the Trevor Project and all kinds of fun. We played all the way through Resident Evil 4 together in the same room. It was a lot of fun. So check that out. Again, it's up on YouTube. I want to remind everybody as well, the Revival Club is playing The Darkness. This is courtesy of Carlos. We're doing The Darkness 1 and 2. Brad is in the process of giving a big thumbs down. I'm working through The Darkness myself right now. And
I'm just going to say, Brad, The Darkness led to one of my favorite highlights from you.
Oh, I did play some of that back in the day.
There's some Jimmies from back in the day thanks to that game. But yeah, if you're interested in either revisiting The Darkness or playing it for the first time, talking about it, maybe even being a guest when I inevitably have Carlos on the show to talk about The Darkness, consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/4player, or you can subscribe on Twitch. We have a channel set up in Discord. I'm streaming it every Tuesday night, so come hang out. And yeah, we're playing through the Darkness 1 and 2. And the most recent one episode we did for Warhammer 40k Space Marine, I dragged my feet a little bit on getting that edited and getting it out the door, but it is done. It is out there, so it's available on all your podcast feeds and all that, so check it out. Yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. We got a lot to talk about tonight. I don't know where we want to start. Probably Ghostwire Tokyo, since it's kind of the new hotness, right? And I think we've talked about a lot of the other things in some capacity before.
Facts.
Is anybody else besides me playing Ghostwire Tokyo?
Not at the
I
moment.
played like 15
No.
minutes of it.
Okay, so it's gonna be me. Okay, cool. I can do this.
Wait, you didn't
do
say
this.
that right, Nick?
Yeah, you didn't say it
It's
right.
gonna be me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Come on.
Brett
Oh,
knows
come
what's
on.
up.
You're a 90s kid.
You're right. I should have seen that coming. Anyways, I'm playing Ghostwire Tokyo. I'm only about 5.5 hours, almost 6 hours into it at this point. This is, of course, Tango Gameworks. Nolan's already raising his hand. What's up?
First question, because I've been out of the loop. I haven't looked into it at all yet. I haven't seen the reviews. I'm gonna play it. I just have other stuff on my plate. Just had
Right,
family in town for like a week. One question:
Yes.
is it spooky?
Good question.
I hear no.
Oh,
Considering this is the next game from the guys who did The Evil Within, so I think
Yeah.
expectations are pretty high as far as being spooky.
Well, then I know who I am unfollowing on Twitter because she lied to me.
No, this game actually has some spooky elements to it. There's been a few moments because enemies in this game can really sneak up on you, and they are creepy enough in their design that when one of them sneaks up on you, it can be rather alarming. But I think first and foremost, this is probably an action game, or at least more an action game than anything they've done before. I was hoping this was going to have maybe more in common with The Evil Within, especially The Evil Within 2, because it is open world. I think I had a lot of high expectations as far as this being an open world going because of some of those like crazy moments in The Evil Within 2. Like, I have not run into anything so far that has even come close to like the magic of that moment when you kind of walk into that house in The Evil Within 2, and then all of a sudden there's like that big ghost lady and she's following. That shit scared the hell out of me, and it was organic and it snuck up on you. This seems much more kind of like formulaic in terms of its world design. It's weird. The timing of this game is weird because there's already been several really prominent open world games that came out this year already, and this is the most familiar, I think, in terms of its world design. Like you're going. It's an icon map. That's very.
You mean
familiar.
you mean like sort of open world design philosophy, right?
More.
You don't mean like Tokyo or whatever.
No. Yeah. I mean, in terms of like when people, we've had several games this year that have kind of made us think about open world games slightly differently. Of course, the big one being Elden Ring. Breath of the Wild has kind of revolutionized the way we think about open world games. Dying Light, just in its traversal, made us kind of rethink how open world games can be designed in a way. I feel like this is kind of back to basics, or back to like what we've just kind of known, or what we've come to think of when we think of open world game design for a long time. But with that said, like kind of the aesthetic and just the subject matter that fills the world is so out there and creative and flashy, I guess, that it does kind of, in some ways, kind of like sidestep the the negatives that come along with being so tropey or familiar. You know what I mean? Like, like it's you're playing through an open world Tokyo that's like haunted by all these yokai. So think of like demons from like Neo, very similar to that, but also like they're like some of the main enemies in this game look like Slendermen carrying umbrellas and headless schoolgirls running around in schoolgirl uniforms and like doing backflips and trying to kick you and shit. And that stuff is weird and zany, and of course you got the finger gun combat, which
How's
is
that?
I hear not great.
No, okay, so I will say not great in the sense that like it's not particularly deep, and I was
Mhm.
I was kind of hoping they would find some way to kind of like make it feel more tactile. Like, because you're doing all these like like in you watch footage of this and you see you doing all these like crazy like moves with your fingers and then like doing the thing where you like, I forgot what it's called, but you like tether onto their core and you pull it out and you see like you're wrapping the strings around your fingers and stuff, and it looks really cool and really flashy, but you're not physically doing any of those moves, which is kind of strange too, because there are actual puzzles in the game that involve you having to like move the stick in a way to kind of like mimic
Are you saying you wish
hand
this was a
movements.
Connect game, Nick?
I'll tell you this: I think it would be a wild VR game if they could give you the ability to do those hand motions yourself in some way.
Use the Valve
would be-
Index knuckle controllers. That would be.
It would be cool. It would be cool, but of course, then it would be far less accessible,
Yeah.
and it would probably fall victim to other issues. And I think kind of so far it seems like a very tight experience, but just very familiar, and like as flashy as the combat is, it's just not particularly engaging. I mean, I like the feel of like I was about to say like the feel of like finger blasting monsters. But it leaves some to be desired.
So your thoughts on the combat are kind of like what I've seen from a lot of people.
I am
about
playing on
this game.
hard.
You are playing on hard. See, that got me thinking. I've been trying to figure out when I do finally sit down and start to play a bunch of this. Should I play on? I probably shouldn't play on normal because most reviews played on normal and they said, I'm thinking either easy or hard.
So one thing I've noticed is like I
to
think the
spice it
difficulty
up
comes the
in one
difficulty
way or the other.
for the difficulty for me primarily is coming from because as you get elemental attacks that you can use with your finger guns. So you start out with wind, you get water, fire, and other things, and each one is a specific kind of attack, and they have a specific number of uses. And you're actually, as you're going around the world, you can see these like items that have been impacted by this
ammo. Your
phenomenon
finger guns
that's-
have ammo.
Yeah, you have ammo, but like to get ammo, you see like parts of the world that have been impacted by this like supernatural phenomenon. They're like
Was
floating.
that the ammo, like,
boxes.
the blue outline things you were seeing?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so those are like spirits. So you're also like part of the thing that you're doing is you're gaining you're acquiring spirits that have been affected by this phenomenon, and you're sending them back to this dude on the outside of Tokyo, who is going to put them back in corporeal form, apparently. So you're trying to seek them out and get as many as you can. That's kind of separate, but you'll as you're walking around the world, you'll see like cars and vacuum cleaners and all kinds of stuff that's kind of like glowing and like they're floating and kind of glitching out. If you hit them, you get ammo back for each one of your finger guns, right? So the difficulty for me, I'm constantly running out of ammo in this game, which I
Have you
don't know if
tried missing less?
In a good way or a bad way?
maybe the jury is still out on
So-
that
so
question,
I would
because
say-
it's kind of annoying, I guess.
I would say, speaking of their former game, Evil Within 2, that was a game that often you would have very low ammo.
But that was also a
yeah.
survival horror game,
Mm-hmm.
which this is not. Like they were
Also,
very much trying to
you are
lean into,
playing
like-
on hard though, so ammo conservation
I just-
probably
Yeah,
is
that's what we're
consideration of the
talking about.
design.
Yeah, I mean, you can change the difficulty, so I may switch it back to normal if it gets too annoying.
Do you think that like playing on easy would make like combat more fun, like just breezier, just kind of
I
like
think it would
maybe
make
get
the
it
whole
over with
experience-
quicker?
I feel like it would kind of make the whole game super breezy. I mean, I don't think it's
But it
particularly
sounds like that's
challenging
not a
even on
bad idea.
hard. Because it is open, so even when I get like cornered or something, I can usually just kind of like walk backwards away from things, and unless I run into a wall or something, I'm constantly able to keep enough space between me and the enemies that I'm not getting hit a ton. I'm just constantly having to like run around the environment and find those items and like hit them to get ammo back, which is
So
a little
so you
annoying.
feel like you just spend too much time searching the world, not for cool stuff, but just literally for just like essentially ammo.
Yeah, I mean, especially in and around combat
Oh,
scenarios,
like,
but like
while you're in combat, you're also constantly trying to find ammo.
Whoa!
yeah. What's up? What's up, Crispy?
You read that cat's mind?
Yes, there are cats and dogs. You can read their minds. You can give them
What?
stuff.
Can you
You
pet
give them
them?
treats, and you can pet them, and they'll eventually lead you to like
Oh
hidden
my
stuff.
god, I mean, okay. All that
So-
other stuff you said about it sucking doesn't matter anymore. That's
Wait,
amazing.
I
Crispy's
heard that all
hidden.
the cats are like the vendors in the world.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah. All if you go inside shops, there's like they're technically yokai, I think, but they're in the form of cats,
Right.
and they're like floating there,
Gotcha.
and they talk to you and sell you stuff. It's weird. It's silly. It's got a lot of
Wow.
personality. It's kooky, and that's kind of keeping me going.
Kooky. That's not. That's also a word that just
kooky.
sort of came out of nowhere from your mouth just now. Nothing
I
that
say
you've
kooky?
described. You say kooky.
He did.
You said
Nothing you've
kooky.
described up to this point, and from what I'm seeing, points in the direction of kooky. So how is it kooky?
Wait, this doesn't look kooky to you? There's like
This looks
headless
kooky.
schoolgirls running at me doing backflips.
Scary.
This looks so fucking stupid. Like,
That's scary and,
but like
and
in a
cool,
fun way, not like
See,
this looks kooky.
What Crispy is describing
This
right
looks
now
goofy.
is what I say. I kooky to me is what Crispy just described.
This is
Dumb in the
this
good
is
way.
goofy as hell. Like,
but
It is
tonally,
goofy.
I mean, it is not tonally. Like, is the story very serious?
Yeah, I mean it's supposed to be. I mean, it's definitely treating the atmosphere kind of like a horror game.
you're like trying to save the
But in the
souls
same-
of like everyone in the city or something. Right?
Yeah, because as you're walking around, like you'll see there's just clothes littered everywhere. Like people just got evaporated in their clothes. and there's
Horrifying.
clothes
But just
everywhere.
because something has like really high stakes doesn't mean it can't be like goofy, you know?
I mean,
But
I
I'm
would
just curious
actually-
if
I
the
would actually-
goofiness comes from the story at all.
But I think this is goofy in the same way that Resident Evil is goofy. Like it's a goofy concept, but it takes itself pretty seriously, and it has some genuinely creepy moments. Like some of the the boss
But clothes
encounters-
on the street that used to be people, that's horrifying.
I
Right?
mean, yeah, but like
Yeah,
everything around it
maybe-
is just a little bit more snappy, more fast paced. Like I'm running around looking for stuff and shooting things with my finger guns, which kind of makes everything around it that's supposed to be creepy and unsettling a little less so. I mean,
So
to me,
it's
the
kind of
scariest
like
thing in this-
when Kiryu picks up a motorcycle and slams a dude into the ground, and then the motorcycle on top of him, and then he jumps on the motorcycle, and the motorcycle, blows up into a million pieces. Even
Sure,
though the
that sounds
story
pretty
is super
kooky.
serious,
You know, like I like the lady from E3, like her whole "it's spooky," like I think that's a good word for it because spooky
know,
isn't scary. You know what's spooky? Disney's Haunted Mansion. That's spooky. Like there's ghosts and they jump out like, oh, look at these ghosts dancing in the ballroom and all these infinite stairs and like there's a floating head that calls on the dead and there's a bell ringing in the distance. Like,
but
like,
let me
that's
ask you this:
goofy
could
spooky.
Henry watch me play this game?
I don't know enough about your son and what he considers
He's 4.
scary.
You know his age.
Well, I know that, but like I don't remember what I was like when I was 4 or what I was
Yeah,
watching when I was
4?
4. I don't know anything about 4-year-olds, Brad. I mean, I'd be like, sure, and you'd probably traumatize him. So I don't
Yeah.
fucking know.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the one of the most common enemies are like those Slenderman looking dudes carrying umbrellas, and I
That's
find those to be
scary.
genuinely creepy, and they're kind of everywhere. So like that's weird. You can also latch onto these Tengu yokai, which are like these like angel looking like bird people that are flying the sky, and you can like tether onto them with your finger gun strings, and they're like grappling hooks, so you can like it's very vertical, so you're like going to the top of buildings and you can like glide between buildings and stuff. The whole like premise of the game is like you die at the beginning right before this whole thing goes down, and this wandering spirit who's kind of actually the main character of the game inhabits your body because it needs a host and brings you back to life. So it's like you are the host body, but you're also hearing his voice in your head, and he knows more about what's going on than you do. So you're just kind of like the puppet, and he's the puppet master. And it's the whole thing is kooky and wild, and
Spooky.
it has. Brad's laughing again.
Spooky.
Spooky.
It's kooky.
Exactly. I don't think she lied when she
like
said it's
how,
spooky.
So I only played like 15 minutes, but I like how the dude has like this impossibly black void on his face or whatever.
You
You
never
know
get
what
to
I'm?
see it because you're in first person.
It's first person, but in the cutscenes, it's like because he was in like an accident or something, and I'm
He's in a
wondering if
motorcycle
it's
accident. Yeah.
like if that demon just like inhabited his like face trauma or whatever.
Yeah. We're gonna call it face hole.
It's a cool look, I guess. Like
Yeah, no,
I keep staring at that and like, wow, that's like really black. I don't know how to describe it.
So this was one of the two Bethesda games that had the exclusivity agreement temporarily for Sony.
Right, because it was in development long before the Microsoft acquisition.
Yeah. So
Gosh, why did you have to remind us? We were trying to keep things kooky over here, and you're all getting.
I'm curious to know,
whoa!
Deathloop made good fun, made good use of the controller with the triggers and the speaker in there. Does this game do anything like that?
Not anything of note, really. I mean, here it in some ways it's a bit of a disappointment because I was expecting for as kooky and wild and over the top as it seems visually, it's pretty by the books. Not boring necessarily, but not anything to write home about in terms of like it certainly doesn't live up to like the platforming standards of like Dying Light 2. The combat isn't anywhere near as engaging or fun as like Horizon. And it's just got a lot of flair and creativity and some interesting story bits and stuff. But I do see a lot of people are probably going to lob the same complaints we always hear about open world games. This game, rightfully so. It's not doing anything particularly,
which is so original. Fucking weird, right? Because this is a Japanese developed game. I feel like one, they don't make a lot of first person shooters, and two, they don't make a lot of open world games, not like traditional open world games. And when I think of like The Evil Within 2, I think one of the reasons that those open world environments, acts, chapters, or whatever from that game were cool is because they didn't feel like any other open world thing. It just sort of felt like, oh, what if Resident Evil, kind of like what we wanted from horror games. What if it's like you just have a big town to explore? And
right.
it felt different, and it's so weird that for this to come out and feel like another one of these.
I get the feeling that like maybe at some point this game was a bit more ambitious than what we ended up getting, and like maybe when the Microsoft acquisition started, or when they were starting to realize what was gonna happen with the Microsoft acquisition, like they started just like, okay, we need to get this out the door, so maybe let's just lean more into like
you say ambition, but like an big open world game from like a small Japanese studio does seem ambitious. It just,
I mean,
do you think that it seems weird?
So far, the open world stuff, which is not even the entire experience, but the open world stuff in The Evil Within 2 seems like a way more interesting than this. But I will say that I'm constantly surprised by like how vertical this is and how many things that how many buildings you can kind of go and like there are things to find. There's interesting things, and again, I'm only like 6 hours into this, and you know me, when I play open world games, I'm probably gonna play this game for like 30 hours, even though you can probably beat it in 12. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna go deep on this game, and I may find a lot more interesting stuff. I know the Drunken Merchant is in chat saying that he beat this game the other day, and the ending is great. I don't know if I believe him yet, but we'll see.
I gotta say though, Nick, and this is the vibe I got from reviews. Like every time you say a word from your mouth that's positive, it doesn't sound positive. Like when you say interesting things, it actually sounds like you're saying not interesting things.
Okay, well, I don't know how to fix that problem. I mean, I'm just trying to communicate more to the people listening than I am to you at this point, because
sure.
A lot of people listening know what I like and what kind of games I'm into. So I want to make sure people understand that, like, I'm playing this game, I'm enjoying it, but I'm talking to you knowing that you're probably not going to love this game. I could be wrong.
Really?
You might.
I was super excited about this game.
But if you play this and love it and then you skip Horizon, I'm going to be like, what are you doing with your life, Brad? Like,
wait, but those have very different looks and vibes, and there's no finger guns, and there's just a bunch of different kinds of bows.
But I'm talking about, like, the mechanics, the combat, the exploration, the world is just, they're not on the same level. They're nowhere near on the same level. So, like, for me, I'm giving this the benefit of the doubt because I like the subject matter, and I am already okay with this kind of open world game. You are not, for the most part.
Yeah, it
And the
does
things
scare me.
about this
Sure.
combat that let me down are probably going to really let you down more than me, I would imagine. So I don't know. I don't know. I'll play more of it. I'll talk about it later. We probably need to move on. We got a lot of other games to talk about, but
I'm not gonna play Horizon, but you're trying to talk. Now you're talking me out of this one.
well, you talk me out of Chicory, bitch. It's only fair.
Damn.
Nothing is keeping you from
Damn.
playing Chicory,
Damn.
Nick.
You are.
Oh, he's been holding a grudge on that.
You know what? I
Are you mad at Brad for talking you out of playing Chicory, or are you mad at yourself for being weak enough to be swayed by Brad?
okay. Here's the situation. This is gonna be a segue of sorts. I feel like I've struck out twice because I think I'm going to probably put down Triangle Strategy, and not because I'm not enjoying, not because I'm
Told you
not
that
enjoying.
ages ago.
No, but not because I'm not enjoying the combat. It's honestly probably this is gonna. I don't want this to sound wrong. It's probably gonna sound wrong. So I'm playing it with the Japanese voices, and it's just the story is so
Well,
kind of dry and lengthy, and it's just a lot of reading while hearing.
Well, why did you do Japanese? Because
Because
I'll
I
put
can't
on.
stand the English voice acting. It's god awful. It's god fucking awful.
It's not. It's not. It's not god awful. There are some truly god awful characters, but
Did you not tweet about how bad the voice acting is the other
You
day
did.
in this game?
No, no,
many
no.
times.
You're not listening to me. It's what I've said
Okay.
the last 2 times I talked about this. Is that there are some truly terrible characters that happen to be in lead roles, and that's very unfortunate. But a lot of the characters are completely fine.
Are you playing in English?
Yes.
How do you do that? It's
But
so
I
bad.
mean, okay. First of all, Benedict
I
is
have a high
terrible.
tolerance. I have a high
Benedict is
tolerance
terrible. I
for
specifically posted a clip of Benedict, and he's terrible. But a lot of the characters are completely fine, and like like when you play a game with bad graphics or whatever, or like an older game, not bad graphics necessarily, but an older game, your eyes will adjust, and all of a sudden the N64 game will stop looking like poison or whatever, right? And you'll just be like, oh, I'm just playing an N64 game. This is fine, right? I mean that's kind of how it is with the voice acting, but like again, you switched it to Japanese. I'd say that the story. Okay, first of all, how far? What chapter did you get to?
I'm like 5 hours into this game.
What chapter?
Whatever that may. I don't know, dude. I haven't played in a couple days, and that's why I'm like, maybe I'm putting it down. Like every time I think about playing it, I don't feel the pull because I just know I'm gonna spend like because I've been playing on my lunch break, and my lunch break has been consisting of like 35 minutes of reading while listening to Japanese voice acting, and then starting a battle that I can't finish before my lunch break's over.
You've definitely made it harder on yourself for sure, because there is a lot of story, and that's the thing. I think the story is like completely fine and serviceable, especially because it's centered around like making big decisions, and the story will actually diverge in pretty significant ways based on your decisions or votings or attempts at making decisions. Yesterday I was doing a big vote that would actually dramatically change where I would go in the story next, and no matter what no matter what I did, I could not convince my council or whatever to vote in the direction I wanted them to. They kept voting against me, and I'm like, fuck, I guess I got to go do this other thing now, which I really didn't want to do. But that's cool. The thing is, I think the story is in some ways kind of interesting and exciting, but you're right. It is, the way it's paced is you get a lot of it at once, and it can be really exhausting. I know when I talked about it last time after playing the first 3 chapters, people were like, people were like, oh, well, maybe it's just balanced in favor of story versus gameplay because it's early on in the game. And
Sure.
It's not. I mean, it stays like that throughout. That balance does not change. And the thing is, I mean, it's no fault of the story. It's just the way it's paced, because you get so much of it between the gameplay. It's not like a little story here and then about a little story, then about a little story and about. It's a lot of story
because
and
of
then
the way
a
I've been
battle,
playing
and a
it
lot of
on my
story.
lunch breaks, and because I haven't been playing it every day on my lunch break, I've gone days between battles because there's so much story in between, and I only have.
That sounds like you're not
So like
playing
I'm
that much, really. But I
no,
understand
I'm
what you're
not
saying.
because I'm
Well,
not feeling the pull. Maybe I need to start playing in English to
no,
see
no,
if
no.
I
What I'm
maybe get
saying
you
is
back on
like
track.
your sessions don't actually seem very long at all. I don't. Um,
I only have an
but
hour for lunch. I got to eat, so that leaves me about 45 minutes probably to actually play the game. What do you want me to tell you?
So maybe have you considered
We're not
maybe
here.
just like
We're not here to
turning off
fix my.
the language
We're not.
entirely?
we're not. We're not. Let me talk
This
a little
is
bit about
not
this
triangle
because
strategy therapy for Nick.
you're right. It's not. It's not. Shut up, Nick. I will say though that I'm about halfway through the game now, and I am enjoying it quite a bit. And a lot of it is um, is because I do really like the gameplay. I was worried, and a little disappointed earlier because there wasn't like a ton of customization for your units, and I like Final Fantasy Tactics where there's like tons and tons of that, endless amounts of that, right? But like the map design is really strong, and the scenario design is really strong. Like there's really cool like choke points, like they're just good maps. It's not like a flat boring Fire Emblem map or whatever. Like they're well designed scenarios, and they throw in like really tough boss enemies, and it really adds a lot of like tension to certain parts of the map, so you're really coming up with strategies on the fly to like deal with like this looming threat of like, okay, this boss enemy is gonna kill a couple of my characters, and I'm just gonna have to like make some choices to like sacrifice a couple who I know are gonna die, and just try to salvage, like pick off everybody around them before I try to really focus down this boss. And like making those sorts of decisions, on the fly is what I think makes a good tactical game. Now, because there's like very little customization out of battle, I was worried that I wasn't going to make like a lot of interesting choices, outside of going into a battle. But one thing I wasn't expecting is the game throws a lot of characters at you. Like you get a lot of recruitable characters who will join your army based on various like hidden bars, because you're constantly making decisions where you're making like the morality decision, the liberty decision, or like the utilitarian decision. And like you have all these invisible bars, and depending on like where you are in certain like levels of like morality, like a character will like join your party, right? And now when I go into a battle, I can bring in like 10 units, but I have 20 to choose from, right? And each of those characters, while I can't change their class, they have like very specific, distinct like roles, like things that they do. Like I have a character who's a trapper who sets traps. He's not really good at anything else, but he can set a spring trap that will like if an enemy steps on it, he'll fling him into a fucking wall or off a cliff, and it'll immediately end their turn. And that's all he does. That's all he's good at. But if I get into a map that has like a cliff or a big wall or whatever, like that's the guy. It's the perfect guy. And because you have to make the tough decision of like, you like a lot of these characters because they're cool and unique in terms of what they can do, but like it's that makeup of well, let's bring a trapper and a fire mage because they're good at it's a dry map, and when it's dry, you
Other
can set
ways
the grass on
of
fire and stuff. Or if it's raining, I'll bring a certain mage who does like lightning magic because her
yeah.
lightning will propagate through the water or some shit, or she can even make a
Is that a thing
rainstorm.
that can happen?
Yeah, because
Ooh, that's cool.
there's interactivity and like elements and stuff. Or like if it's a map that is like indoors and you have really good choke points, I'll bring my ice mage because he can create ice walls that can like completely block off the enemy, and they're just wasting time like knocking down this ice wall while you're fucking them up with archers from a different direction. It's like a really good tactical game with really good like characters that have like unique abilities, like, and that's all very exciting. But if you can't get on with the story, it's tough because there's a lot of it. I like it though. I mean, I like this type of story. And now one thing I was worried about is I was getting all these characters in my army. I thought that I was not going to like, once they join my team, like that's pretty much it for their story outside of the main characters, kind of like that like Chrono Cross effect or whatever, right? But there actually is like, and again, it's even more story, so that might scare you off. But there are these little like character development, like little story vignettes for even like the smaller characters that pop up throughout the story. It's all optional, but I mean, why not do them if you care, if you're interested in the characters, because they're cool little like story things, right? And like with like flashbacks and shit. I got this really, really old archer, and he's cool and he's strong, and now I'm getting flashbacks of like when he fought in the previous war and like held off an entire army with this fucking bow, and I'm like that shit's cool, and like it makes you care about the characters. So it's just it's long-winded, and I'm actually excited because this is a game with multiple difficulty levels and a new game plus, where you kind of, and when you start the new game plus, you can actually see all your different invisible like bars for making story decisions. Because you can see that stuff in a new game plus, you can very easy it's much more easy to kind of steer the story and take those alternate paths that you couldn't before, because maybe your liberty stat wasn't high enough to convince one character to vote a certain way, and you can get that alternate ending that you didn't get the first time. But the exciting part is you can skip so much of the story now, and that new game plus run, that second run is like all gameplay, and I'm already thinking about that run, because that is going to be much more paced for like what I want, and now I can use all the characters I didn't get a chance to use last time, or
and you already had all the story beats because you already played through it once.
Yeah, because
that
it's
makes sense.
because the maps are very different depending on like who you bring, who you choose from your army to bring in. So I don't often replay games, but since I think that second playthrough is going to go so much quicker, so much breezier, and I'll be able to play on hard, that I'm kind of excited to start a second run when I get there, because I'm enjoying the game a lot. Again, it's very Game of Thronesy, and it's long-winded, and if the fade in of a scene and fade out of a scene and going back to the map and selecting a different scene and the different part of the world, if that was a little snappier and didn't take so long, it wouldn't be really a problem. Because I think the written word that's there,
give it another shot.
The written word that's there, I think is good. It's especially for like a like a Japanese RPG style game. Like you don't usually get that. I mean, it's good. It's good. There's just a little too much of like in Game of Thrones, when the scene goes on too long because there's a lot of people being fake nice to each other, and it's like, okay, we know why you're really here. Just get to the point instead of being Littlefinger, right? Just we get it. You're an asshole.
We all started thinking of Littlefinger when you said that.
Yeah. Or cool. Everyone in Game of Thrones.
Or that too, I suppose.
I like it a lot. I like it a lot, especially from a gameplay standpoint, which I was not expecting.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I saw your tweet about the delivery from that one character, Benedict.
He's bad. He's so bad.
Okay, what is his character in the story? Is he like an Obi-Wan type?
He's like a strategist for your army. He's also like your mentor.
Right. He's like that kind of wizened mentor.
Yes.
I need to see more examples, because the one you posted I don't think was really
okay. Well, I mean, sure, I could post them all day. It's bad. It's bad. Especially because, like the gruff knight master at arms guy is, I mean, other characters are like way more animated than this guy. This guy's just like blah 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 blah.
Very monotone, and
very monotone. Very.
But that could just be part of his personality, right? His character.
Well, I mean, no one in the story comments on how. Well, actually,
he is.
I have had some backstory about how he's like, big gruff master of arms guy's like, he won't even go drinking with us. He was like internalizes all his. And just he's that kind of character.
He just has like faint Spock vibes based on that scene, I feel like.
Yeah, I can post more. It's not good. Like other characters, you'll be a scene where other characters are exclaiming.
I guess what I'm saying is, I was just very surprised that Nick had such a strong reaction to the.
That's what I'm saying. I tend to have a very high tolerance for what y'all consider bad voice acting, quote unquote.
What? Bad in Japanese games?
What? No, I'm talking about like there's so many times that you specifically, Brad or Crispy, are like, this game has terrible voice acting, and then I play it and I'm like, I don't hear it. It sounds fine to me. This is cool. I'm enjoying it.
I'm usually a supporter of English dubs, especially because. Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm just speaking the truth here. I'm thinking about like I always think about like Heavy Rain and how you talked about the voice acting in Heavy
Oh,
Rain being terrible, and I was like,
yeah,
I
that
don't
was
hear
bad.
it. I mean, there's moments where it's like the writing
You
is maybe
hear
not
it.
great, but like the voice acting was fine to me. So like, I don't know. When
Grammar
I
killer.
started playing this in English, I made it like 30 minutes. And I was like, I can't do this, and I switched it to Japanese. And because I don't understand Japanese, I can't tell if the Japanese voice acting is bad. It could be just as bad. I have no idea. But to me,
It's
it just
bad.
sounds like Japanese voice acting. So
Yeah, but
it
you're
doesn't
just
bother me.
reading a whole bunch.
I know, and that's kind of what's dragging me down. I'm gonna try switching back to English and see how it goes. Because I don't want to give up on this
I'll
game because I
put on
enjoy
a
the combat.
scene and I'll be like kind of multitasking while I'm listening and watching back and forth because it's in English and because it's long
I
and
know, and I
because you
wish
can
I could be doing
autoplay
that
it.
as well.
You
I'm
should
gonna
just
try it.
do that.
I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try it. All right, we need to move on. We still got other games to talk about. I want to check in next with Nolan because he's been playing Tunic, and I finished Tunic this past week. And well, I'm gonna let Nolan talk about it because you're in the
Sure.
midst of it. But
Yeah, no, I am. I'm like we were talking about before the show. Probably, I would assume a little over halfway, based on the world I've explored and what I've seen. But yeah, I definitely been enjoying it. It's unfortunate. One of the things I was kind of curious when the game came out. I looked up some reviews, and I was seeing a lot of negative user reviews, which kind of got me a little worried. But then, I saw the critics were being fairly
Weird. That's
positive
weird.
on it. But it seems like people are kind of, I don't want to say review bombing, but like just giving it like, oh, this is just just a Zelda Dark Souls clone, and it's like, well, I mean, that's kind of the point.
But let me just interject here real quick because at some point in this, and I don't know exactly when it happened, but there
Mhm.
is a point in this game, and Prince of the Universe keeps saying this sentence over and over again, and I still don't know what the fuck he's talking about. Now that even after I've spent 20 plus hours with this game, he says, "Tell me when you realize that this is literally Dark Souls," and it's like pretty early is when you realize it's kind of a Dark
Yeah,
Souls clone, I
like
guess.
extremely early on, but there's
Um,
nothing wrong with that though.
there's nothing wrong with that, but like there is a point in this game where so Robin came in and she started me working on a puzzle, and then she kind of like we talked about it for a second and she helped me solve it, and we were like, oh my god, she's like, this is really cool. And then she became kind of invested in this whole game, and she spent like the last 7 or so hours of my total gameplay like in and out, just like wanting to know how certain puzzles were solved. And at some point this game became like one of the most engaging, crazy puzzle games I've ever played. Like right up there with The Witness, right up there with the Talos Principle. Like
This
I
reminds me so the way people talk about this reminds me so much of Fez, where Fez starts off as like a really cool, like, like a game where you're solving a lot of puzzles, then all of a sudden it's like, no, there's so much more to this.
Hmm.
It's like mind blowing crazy.
this game has the most mind blowing puzzle I may have ever played, and
You can't talk about it though,
I
right?
can't talk about it. can't talk about it. But I tell you what, I busted out a steno pad, and I went through like 5 pages of paper in my steno pad just marking shit up, and it was like I haven't done that since I played The Witness. And it's just like this one puzzle took me probably like well over an hour, maybe 2 hours to like kind of fully put together and figure out how it works. And the entire time I was doing that, it was constant like epiphany after epiphany after epiphany, and drawing stuff on a steno pad being like, this is fucking blowing my mind.
Hmm.
And I feel like a lot of the people that are review bombing it, quote unquote, are just like people who gave up way before ever even realizing that's a thing that exists in this game, which is unfortunate. So.
I mean, honestly, and not to poo poo someone's opinion, but if they're the words they chose to use, they couldn't have played more than an hour of this game, because even before you get to this puzzle that you were at, because I'm clearly not even there yet. I'm enjoying myself thoroughly. The world's beautiful, the music is fantastic. I'm really enjoying combat's pretty good. Some of the items you get are pretty unique. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you'll see me here, I think, in a couple minutes if you're watching us live in the footage. Kind of, you get these little like almost like I don't call them like little NFT tags, but these little tags. And one of the shticks in this game is like everything is not in English for the most part, and so nothing is really explained. You kind of have to figure things out on your own. And you get a lot of these little tags that you can equip to yourself, and they do different things. Like one of them um, makes it harder for enemies to detect you. One of them makes it so when you're lower on health, you do more damage. And the one I currently just recently got, like I couldn't figure out what it does. And if you look in your journal, sometimes it'll have like a little note next to it. But this one didn't. And then I just kind of realized I had glanced up at my essentially what is an Estus flask, and realized that it changed colors. And I was like, what the fuck? And that's when I realized that if you use this little card, it switches your health flask to be a mana flask. And I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. It's something that, the game never had to tell me that. I figured it out on my own.
But it does this really cool thing that a few games do, but it does it maybe more heavily in this game than I've ever seen before. And that's because a lot of it, we talked about it last week. You had the manual, right? You're finding pages of this manual, you're putting it together, and as you're doing things, as you're figuring things out, like you said, it's all in this other language. And as you're doing things, it's like you're scribbling in the manual, like, so you'll make little notes in like the margins, and you'll circle things and stuff.
It's almost like if this was back in the 90s, and you got a game from another country, so it's not in English, and you have the manual, and you're writing in the manual, oh, I think this means this, so you have little notes scribbled in there.
And it's so it doesn't tell you when it's doing that. It's just sometimes you'll be flipping through it and you'll notice a new thing in the margin. You're like, oh, it's made note of this, and it's just like, and then little thing, you have these little epiphanies. It's a game about having little epiphanies, and it's so good.
But so like I said, I just entered the quarry when I'm in my game. I've had a lot of really good boss fights. There is so much to explore. There are so many hidden passages and secrets. Like, it's gotten to the point where I'm like just kind of running the character across walls trying to find hidden secrets, because multiple times I've gotten past an area and I walk towards something and it pops me out, or I could have been here earlier.
I don't know if you saw this. I don't know how far you've made it into the quarry, but like, I went through this whole elaborate thing in the quarry. I was like desperate for health. I was like running low, whatever. I was like 20-minute run without finding a save spot kind of thing. And I was like, I think I'm gonna die. This is fucked up. And then I kind of made it through, and I found like a little sign like pointing here, like here's a secret passage. And I walked through the secret passage and it spit me out at the very fucking beginning. And I was like, if I had known it was there, I could have just skipped all of it.
Use that as a shortcut. Yeah.
And those moments are so good.
Very similar to like a Souls game. This game is just filled with shortcuts, hidden passageways.
But instead of shortcuts that are like locked with like some.
It's like
special
kind of
key.
intimidating though, right? Because I keep hearing people talk about this game, and they're like, "Dude, that passage was there the whole time." And now I feel like when I finally play it, I'm gonna be poking around a little too much, and I'm just gonna wander into the final boss and not even realize it's the final boss, and then just get my ass.
So
that's you will happen, and you are bound to like find little passages like that if you're poking around, but like some of them are really cleverly hidden. Like you would never think that there was a passage there. So I think you'll still have plenty of those moments. Like, oh my god, I just watched your footage and there's one that I never saw. The little stairs in the back of that thing that took you down. Oh my god.
Yep, everything. And so that is another clever thing about this, is because the game is isometric, but when you use your essential lock on, it shifts the camera a little bit to be a little higher. But you can actually use that when you're exploring the world to kind of almost get a peek around corners or over things, and you might be able to see like a secret passage or something. And Brad, while I will say there is some of that stuff that's like, oh, I didn't know there was a secret passage here, and none of them really are a secret passage and all of a sudden you're at a boss like 3 levels too early, or anything like that. It's more about like, oh, I could have used this as a shortcut. Maybe I was having some trouble in this one area and I keep having to essentially
I just feel like I already know too much now. Like my brain's already gonna be thinking about this game wrong, and my revelations are gonna be different.
I really don't think that's possible, to be totally honest. Especially in relation to like some of the more like larger scale like puzzles and stuff that I'm referring to. Like you won't see it coming.
And I'll also note that someone who, I don't know how many hours I put in this game, but I'm at least in like I guess maybe you'd call it like the 3rd or 4th area. Even though I knew there were secret passages, And even though I do spend a decent amount of time looking for them, there are still many times where I come out the exit of what could have been an entrance and I realize, like, oh shit, I still missed this one. Even though I'm looking pretty hard, they're still pretty well hidden. And it's never like, most of the ones that when you run down like a secret passage that maybe you would have missed before, sometimes it's just some gems. It's nothing super in particular great. Sometimes it's just like maybe an item that allows you to upgrade one of your stats, but in reality, at the end of the day, you could get to the game without that too. So I would still say. Mhm.
I just want to state, kind of for the record, because last week I was going on about a boss that I was stuck on that I was having a hell of a hard time with, and I even said something crazy like I haven't even died this many times in any boss in Elden Ring yet. But literally after the podcast last week, I went and tried the boss again, and I realized I was relying too heavily on dodge rolling, and I wasn't using my shield to absorb damage enough. And as soon as I consciously made that choice, I beat him on my first try. So like I think I may have overplayed the difficulty of the game a little bit last week, because it really isn't that. I mean, there are some challenging bosses, but it's not like a wall by any means. It's nowhere near like some of the walls in Elden Ring. It's you just gotta remember you have multiple tools, and you should make sure you take advantage of all of them. In combat.
I have a question.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So the fictional language. Oh, excuse me.
Bless you.
The fictional language in the game that
Mhm.
you're like. I mean, are you meant to kind of like naturally learn kind of like how to decipher that? Like, is there any insight gained from trying to like learn what it is and like read things that it's not translating for you, or like is it one of those things where it's just like I'm do you know what
There
I like?
are
Like there's
puzzles
just like
in
a
this
whole
game.
yeah.
There are puzzles that you can solve in this game by
Like
translating parts of the
like
manual through
yeah, like
context clues.
is there a moment where you're kind of like, oh, I kind of start to understand like what you know like I'm recognizing these symbols in this order, and I'm kind of like starting to form an idea of like what the language is. Like I guess I don't know, man. I guess what I'm asking is it more of a cipher, or is it its own like completely different like language that like the game just has to like translate for you at a certain point, and otherwise you're just using external context clues.
I think it's more of context clues. I
The
will say this:
latter.
I pretty much 100% in this game, but there were about 4 or 5 puzzles that I looked up, and those puzzles almost all relied on trying to actively translate like basically a small
Something
paragraph
along
in that other language, and I was like, I'm into this, but I don't want to spend the next hour trying to figure
But
out what
like
this
Those
says.
are the
I guess what I
optional
mean
things,
is
though,
like
right,
does
Nick?
solving that puzzle is like I don't know, we might be getting a little hung up on this, but like is solving that puzzle a thing of like are you trying to figure out the meaning of what the thing's telling you like around the language, like despite it being written in a language you don't know, or is it like are you deciphering a code?
It it's the first one, because it's almost
Okay.
all like you can see everything in this game. All the puzzles in this game are kind of built around that manual. So like
Because
almost everything.
all I'm thinking is like when you go to like these secret areas and it shows like a little pop-up, it's like, in that little unknown language, right?
I don't think you're ever going to get to a point where you're like
Is
you see
that
a pop up and you're
like
like, ah, that says
do
this.
yeah,
I
or
could be
like
wrong.
is there like a cipher you eventually get where you're like, oh, that's what this says, and like maybe that offers some insight. Like, is there even an answer to that question, or like did the devs just write all these down and go like, this area is called this, but we'll, that's just something
You
we're gonna
can
keep for ourselves,
you can
or like, is
eventually find
there?
a
Yeah,
there's a page that you can find in the manual at some point that has what you might call a cipher, that says like, that's more of like, it doesn't tell you like this equals A and this equals B or whatever, but it basically says like, if you see this symbol next to this symbol, it has a little drawing next to it, and you're like, okay, what does that drawing mean? And then
yeah.
you can see like in the
Oh,
world you might find letters that are written next to like, there's one puzzle that's built around like what do you call it? Like the cardinal directions.
Uh-huh.
Where the
A
rooster
compass
with
or
you
Yeah,
know
Oh,
the cardinal
like a
like
wind
north,
vane?
south, east, and west.
weather vane. So you'll see a
Yeah.
weather vane with some letters written or some things written next to it, and when you find that page, you can kind of like piece together what that weather vane is trying to indicate to you based on that page in the manual. But it's not saying like this is N and this is S and this is east or E and this is W. It's not like that. It's more of just like trying to piece together context clues to figure out what they mean. And it gets some of it's crazy, but it's all it's pretty much all manageable, and some of the stuff is just
I don't know,
mind-blowing.
man. Like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I might have been developing some ideas about this game that aren't true, just
Like
based on like people being really like coy about the fact is like, man, this is like bigger than you think, or like this is not just some like cute little game. This is like kind of a more fleshed out, interesting experience with like secrets and stuff like that. And I don't know, like I'm nervous to try this, but I really want to.
I will say this.
But I'm afraid there's an
Fez?
outside chance that like I'm getting a little too like I don't know,
I will
like
say this.
Pony
You have to
Island
play,
with
like,
it or something, you know?
you have to spend like 12 hours playing a really solid Zelda clone before you even really get to a point where it starts to become something else.
Mm.
And then it becomes like bust out the notepads and start writing shit down and like
Crispy,
figure it out.
have you ever played Fez?
I
Yeah.
feel like I should play Fez.
Like
That's good.
like in its entirety, a significant amount of Fez?
No.
Fez is almost the exact same way, where it's like you're playing one type of game and then all of a sudden, oh wait, there's a language here. Oh wait, you literally look at everything you've looked at up to that point completely differently, and it just flips the whole world on its head. And yeah,
I will
think
say
you'll
this
be
with
impressed.
confidence. I will say this with confidence. If everybody here played this game to completion, that one puzzle that I alluded to, I think would absolutely be on everybody's like best moment of the year.
Man,
Like, holy
everyone's
shit.
saying that, but like,
It's crazy.
what
Like,
Nolan led
fucking
with,
good.
was it Nolan? Like,
I don't know if I
it's
believe
not
you.
just
Like,
it's not just user reviews. Like, there are some critics that this game got a lot of sevens. Like,
Hold on.
everyone's talking about like it's the Outer Wilds.
I guarantee you, anybody who those shitty user reviews, I don't think they played any more than an hour of this game.
Also,
I promise you that. The things, if you go and look at the negative things they're saying, it's blah, 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 like
it is
they are
easy to
like
form a
people
certain
who are just
opinion
being
pretty
shitty.
quickly.
Yeah. But what I would also
but
say is those opinions in that first hour of the game are clearly wrong, because the first couple hours of this game is fantastic.
if you're into like Zelda, yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
fucking fantastic. But a lot of those critical reviews that are giving it like sevens, I think, because you can play this entire game and not touch that puzzle, and you can fight a boss, get an ending, and never even know that puzzle existed. But it basically requires the game tells you something at some point, and it basically requires you to go, yeah, I don't want to do that. And if you do that, I could totally see how you might look back at this game and be like, yeah, it's 7. But like those other like the difference between a 7 and like a 9 is in that optional window there that people are just
some of these
choosing
like
to ignore.
some of these negative reviews on Steam though, like it's so weird that people are having such a visceral reaction to the things they're reacting to. Because I feel like
Steam negative reviews.
like I don't know, like there's one where he's talking about like this, like he played for an hour and a half and he's like, there's no story, you wake up and follow breadcrumbs, and I don't understand what the motivation is if there's no story driving your actions. And it's like,
Did Chris Davis
Are you-
write that review?
like, are
Oh,
you
fuck
kidding me?
you.
Like, you probably play games that are structured like that. Like, I don't like. And this one guy's like, oh, you play a Souls-like
Well, I would
game,
also-
and then you play a puzzle game, and it like kind of sucked when it turned into something else. And it's just like, what are you talking? Like, I don't know.
Sounds
I
like that
don't
guy
know.
just doesn't like puzzle games.
No, what's
Sounds
going
like he
on?
just-
Like,
oh.
yeah, I don't know. Like,
We probably need to move on.
yeah, we probably do. I don't know.
I
I'm
do
just
encourage everybody to play this because
Hey,
I've just
it's
been
very
hearing
good.
you guys wax philosophical about this game for a couple weeks, and it sounds really cool, and I'm afraid
And-
of being hurt.
It's also at the end of the day, it's like a 20-hour commitment. If you didn't like it, you only spent like 20 hours of your life playing it. You spent how many hours playing Elden Ring at this point?
Is Elden Ring
so
making
far-
me like reticent to play other video games?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Am I
Chris,
just
what
like
will
I
say
can't leave Elden Ring for Tunic unless it's the next Elden Ring? Like, you know what I
Is-
mean?
Nick
Also,
so
it's
far
on
the
Game
only one
Pass.
that's beaten it. It is on Game Pass. Nick so far is the only one that's beaten it. I haven't beaten it yet. Let me see what happens. Like I haven't gotten to the part that Nick's talking about yet. Let's see what happens when I get there, and we'll revisit.
Nolan, message me when you think you've
Okay.
reached a turning point.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hey,
We'll-
hey,
we'll
Nick.
was so
revisit
mad
this
because I stayed up
Nick,
till like
Crispy.
2 a.m. on accident. Like she was like, don't finish that puzzle without me. And then she went to bed and I was like, I can't stop. And I stayed up till 2 a.m. scribbling on a fucking notepad like a crazy person. And I did it and I finished the game. And the next morning she was like, what happened? I was like, I finished it. She's like, you did what?
That was incredibly rude, Nick.
That
I
was
know,
a little rude.
I'm so sorry. I couldn't stop.
So
I meant to go watch a movie and instead I stayed up until 2 a.m.
Hey Nick, before we go to break, I really don't have much to say at all about Kirby. I just want to roll some beautiful footage and talk a little bit about that experience.
Go for it.
So I have not really been playing Kirby in the whatever the fuck it's called, Forgotten Lands?
And the Forgotten Land.
Forgotten Land. But Henry's been playing it, and this is his first real video, like button analog stick. This is his first real video game. I mean, he has like a little kid's tablet where he's able to freely download all kinds of bullshit, and man, it's so much bullshit. He became a touchscreen kid, and I've been waiting for like the time for him to like, you know, really learn how to play a video game, and this came out and I'm like, well, this is perfect, right? Because it's Kirby, and Kirby's already kind of a baby game, and he's really good at like, not at playing games, but he's really good at like figuring it out, like figuring things out, and you know, being patient in a way that like he's patient in a way that like my wife,
But
she
you're
plays
not?
some video games, but like if she dies a couple times, she's like, I'm never playing this video game ever again. You know, Henry doesn't care because he'll play these
She
little
tried Dark
tablet games.
Souls.
He'll play these tablet games where he just pokes the screen over and over again, and it's like you're not doing anything, but he's laughing. He thinks it's funny. All I'm saying is that it's been a really great experience to see Henry, who like, remember what was it, a few weeks ago when I played the demo and I'm like, this sucks, but I recorded footage with Henry and he's like, he doesn't even know what character he is, he barely knows how to walk, you know, like getting down, like being able to not just jump but to like move and jump onto a platform at the same time is like something that if you've never really played video games, it's hard to kind of get the
Wrap your head
mechanics of
around,
that.
yeah.
But he picked it up really quick, and he's even finished, you know, some levels on his own without help. But it's funny to watch him play because since he's never really played a video game, like a proper video game, he's not like objective oriented, like, oh, I got to get to the end of this level. He's just like, oh, look at this little like whirlpool. Let's go down the whirlpool like 20 times because that's cool, right? And you know, he was like a little bomb Kirby, not in this footage, and he was just throwing bombs into the whirlpool, watching them suck down, and he's like, you know, it's not really a video game to him. It's just some like cool, like new experience of like, look at these bombs go down this whirlpool. That's crazy. Let's run into it a bunch because that's crazy. That's just sort of how his mind works. But seeing him get better and actually be able to complete levels, it's hard to watch him sometimes because I'm like, just fucking go. And he's like, no, I just want to be the cone. I want to be the traffic cone. I just want to be the traffic cone. But he gets to the part of the level where you're not supposed to be the traffic cone anymore. And he's just like, well, I'm just going to go back and hang out as a traffic cone because I want to be a traffic cone.
Did he just save his ass from falling in that pit? Did you see that?
Oh, did he?
I thought he fell to his death, and then you just see him come like flying out of the darkness back up to the cliff. I was like, did he just save himself? That's impressive.
I bought one of those 8-bit Do wireless controllers that's modeled after the Super Famicom version of the controller because it has the colored buttons. So I can, because he knows his letters, but when he sees like the A prompt at the screen, he looks down, to see the A or whatever.
Don't we all?
But I could just say yellow, and he can like really quickly glance and hit yellow. When I was kind of teaching him the game, but now I see him doing stuff without even looking down, and it's like, oh, look, this is his first video game. This is great.
Good.
So I just wanted to share some Henry footage and let you know that he's been real excited because he's used to playing such trash app games on his tablet, and this is like
it is. We have come full circle from 10 years ago, Brad making jokes about Spyro being a baby game to Brad.
Oh, he's way too old for Spyro.
Brad literally teaching a very small child to play video games and talking about it as like an actual baby playing the video.
Well,
game.
he's 4, but yeah.
Yeah. It's still a baby to some of us, right?
Yeah.
Us non-parents. That's a baby.
That stuff you're talking about, him just like wanting to hang out and like jump in the whirlpool over and over again, really resonates because I remember some of my earliest memories with video games are playing the original Super Mario Brothers with my dad, and we would always play the first level, the second level, and then we do the jump ahead to the one with the platforms over the blue water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I always thought that the blue water looked like blue Kool-Aid, so I'd always just keep jumping in it over and over again. And that's like that was the extent to how much I played Mario Brothers when I was like his age. It is a little funny to think though that like this is going to be part of his like deep brothers with my dad, and we would always play the first level, the second level, and then we do the jump ahead to the one with the platforms over the blue water.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I always thought that the blue water looked like blue Kool-Aid, so I'd always just keep jumping in it over and over again.
Kool-Aid.
And that's like that was the extent to how much I played Mario Brothers when I was like his age. It is a little funny to think though that like this is going to be part of his like deep memories for video games.
Yeah.
Is Kirby just like stretched out over that fucking car? That's disgusting.
Have you ever seen like the Kirby drawn as like what Kirby would actually look like in the real world, and it's like disgusting and horrifying.
Fleshy
I want to
ball.
see like Kirby, like realistic Kirby stretched over.
You just
like
want to see like
car.
a flesh tent stretched over a European car.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh my!
If Henry grows up to be into Vor, like we're gonna know. We're gonna know why.
Does that mean if like realistic Kirby like swallows like a human being, he like contour like he like the person is like wearing Kirby like skin?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Yeah, they did that on Adventure Time. Like Finn would jump inside of Jake and then wear him like a big muscle suit, and his face would be in Jake's mouth.
That's horrifying. That's horrifying. All right, we're gonna take a quick break, guys. When we come back, we got one more game to talk about, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about the PlayStation Plus news and answer a couple questions from our listeners. So if you're watching us live, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. I wanted to bring this up briefly because I forgot to mention it completely last week, despite the fact that storm kind of like dominated our entire week here in our house. The whole week was kind of weird and thrown off. We had a fucking tornado.
We had about 6 tornadoes in the Austin area.
Yeah, it was bananas, and I'm sure a lot of people saw this on the news and whatnot. But like, I was doing dishes in the living room. We're just sitting there hanging out. We're talking, and we're like, well, maybe we should just figure out what we need to do just in case there's an issue. And then all of a sudden, my phone was blowing up, and I had like 4 text messages from different people. Joel texted me. He was like, dude, you need to get to shelter. There's a tornado right next to your house. And we're like, no fucking way. And we walked out the front door, could totally see the top of the fucking like funnel cloud like over the houses, kind of, because it was. And we were in the guest bathroom in our house it was me, my wife, my dog, my cat, and 4 kittens in a tiny guest bathroom, which was chaos. And we were sitting there on our phone watching that major intersection in Round Rock, which is like, a mile and a half away.
So that's
from our
the
house.
big deal. Like tornadoes happen in Texas all the time.
It's
They
not
really do.
metropolitan areas like this.
But yeah, and it's not just that this is a tornado that formed and came into a metropolitan area. It literally formed in the middle of a major highway intersection, like
Yes.
2 major highway intersections. It forms
people
above the
fly over.
highway. People are in like flyovers. The crazy thing was the news did capture footage of right after it had formed. You see it knocking over light posts, took down like a bank, a Chili's,
drive
a
past that
Party
intersection
City.
on the way to work every day. And now when I drive through that intersection, one of those giant tall light posts looks like it was knocked over and just bent in half like a straw, like a
Mhm.
paper straw, and it's just laying on the side of the road, and it's just fucking crazy. Like, I feel like I was watching on my phone. I was watching like a scene from like, The Day After Tomorrow, where like tornadoes are like sweeping through like,
I
a
mean,
major city. Or it's
honestly,
crazy.
like Nick was definitely the closest out of all of us to it. It was not far from your house at all, but any of us could have been like it was. It went right
man.
near my in-laws' house. It hit
That
the
shit's
building
so
that my
scary.
father-in-law works at.
My brother
yeah.
lives about a quarter mile away from where it landed, so
Yeah,
Oh
so
my God.
it's thankfully, a lot of people. I don't think anyone passed away.
No,
but
no one in Round Rock or in this
correct. Yeah,
general
that's what I'm
area,
sorry.
but
Yeah, I know some other places, but in this
I
area,
think
no
one or
one
two
did.
people died in East Texas, maybe
Yeah.
East West. I don't remember.
But so thankfully for how bad it was, but there was definitely a lot of property damage.
So-
Cars flipped over and stuff like that. So yeah, it was.
I just
it
wanted
was
to bring it up
kinda
because
came
I
out of nowhere.
realized we made it through last week's show, and I completely forgot to even mention it, despite the fact that like it just kind of like changed the week. Like, it was just like,
Mhm.
well, that's not how I expected to spend my Monday night. Holy shit!
yeah.
It was weird, man. It was a
I
weird week.
don't know if I really related the whole story. I think I may have mentioned the Discord, but so I left at work at about 4 o'clock that day to try to get home ahead of the storms, because I kind of wanted to drop my car off at the garage at IKEA, because there was supposed to be hail, right? Well, I got into my
You just
car.
do that? You just drop your car?
Yeah,
You
you
just
can.
drop your car off at it?
I mean,
You
they're
can
not
do
gonna
that?
fucking tow your car.
You say that now.
I mean,
There's
no.
someone working for IKEA listening to this podcast right now. It's like, I got this son of a bitch.
Fuck them. So I go to my car and I can't get my car to start.
Oh no.
Yeah, and it turns out like my positive battery terminal in my car had corroded and it just couldn't start the car. So here's these fucking huge ass storms rolling in, and I had to call roadside assistance. They eventually were able to get me a jump. So I immediately drove over to the IKEA, and everyone else had the exact same idea as me.
Party at IKEA.
Yeah. So I had to
Of
drive
sorts.
around to find some place. I tried to go to the bank. I tried to go to a couple gas stations around that had overhangs. Everyone had the same idea I did. I had to eventually drive like 4 miles to find a gas station I could just park my car under. And then like
Yeah.
10 minutes after I'd parked, the rain just ended.
Did y'all see the kid driving the red pickup truck? He's probably famous now.
Yeah.
Like, literally his truck got picked up by the tornado and rolled and like thrown around, and then it rolled and landed on its wheels, and he just drove off like it was like nothing.
Apparently, they gave
Mhm.
him a new truck, like the
I can
local
imagine.
dealership for.
I think it
that
was like a
model
high
truck.
school kid too.
Yeah, he was
Mhm.
like 17. He was on his
Yeah.
learner's permit or some
It's
shit.
it's nuts. Well, that's one way to learn. Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure we mentioned that because it was kind of a crazy week last week, and I forgot to mention it at all on the show last week. So yeah, that's a thing that happened. But anyways, back to video games. Let's rein it back in. Before we talk about the news, Chris Davis did have a game we wanted to talk about for a second, which is called
Chorus. Not
Chorus. Okay, I
Corvus,
didn't know if
Chorus.
I was gonna say Chorvs because of the way it's spelled. But
No.
what inspired you to play Chorus, Chris Davis?
Carlos did. He picked up
Oh.
Chorus on a sale for like $15-20 at Best Buy. I saw the same deal, and then a few days later, after he said that he'd been playing and liked it, I decided to pick it up.
Didn't somebody ask us about this game on the podcast, like a community question or something, in the past couple weeks?
I
Is this the game that
don't recall. I don't.
Is
think
this the
so.
game that somebody said looked like it was a crispy game? Maybe I'm wrong. Somebody had asked that, but whatever. Continue.
I
What
don't.
is
It looks like
that?
it's space combat.
It's a space combat game. So this is from Fish Labs. They're a German developer. This is their first like full-on console game. They've mainly just done mobile stuff, but they got some of that Embracer Group money, and this is like their debut kind of we can make big games too kind of a game.
Yeah.
You play as a woman named Nara. She is a member. She escaped a cult, an intergalactic cult that is slowly taking over the known universe. She escaped after she committed just a little bit of planetary genocide. And
oh God.
yeah,
Jesus Christ.
so
I'm saying-
she.
I'm not gonna ask you to elaborate on that. Continue.
Yeah, so she helped blow up a planet is what happened, and it picks up a few years later. She's the cult has finally arrived at this little enclave hideout she's been hiding out in a ring of a planet, and she decides to take the fight to the cult and to defend the refugees that are there. And this game is all sorts of all right. It's inspired by a lot of things.
All sorts of all right. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything necessarily really, really well, but it does things well enough.
Pretty all right.
So yeah, as
right.
part of her character,
Say this
she
is the
kind of has
Ghostwire
this.
Tokyo of space combat games. I'm sorry.
I don't know how to answer that because I've yet to play Ghostwire Tokyo, but
Wow.
I'm kidding.
Wow,
I'm just
Nick.
feeding off of Brad's uncertainty about Ghostwire Tokyo.
so
That's all.
as part of her character, Nara has this kind of psychosis going on, where she's just so guilt-ridden by, the stuff she had to do when she was
Murdering
a member of the
billions of
cult.
people.
Yeah, killing millions of people. So she has this kind of Hellblade-like voice in her head that is just commentating like what's going on in the world and her reactions to them. And again, it's not Hellblade well done, but it's okay. The writing.
And you're hearing all this dialogue while you're engaged in space combat?
Yes,
Because that is the gameplay of this is flying
Yeah, well-
around dogfighting, right?
it's usually happening in like non-combat sequences or like just right after you've killed an enemy, but it's not like constantly going on that you have to pay attention to. And it doesn't have that like Hellblade like, you hear it or the voices coming from all around you thing, like proper Psychosis. It's just kind of something you just hear straight out of a single speaker.
Oh, that good old proper Psychosis.
Yeah, that proper Psychosis.
We know what we get what you're saying.
This is a space combat dogfighting game. You're going around segmented open worlds that you jump between using jump gates. It's kind of difficult because the combat is the combat is structured for abilities that you earn as you progress through the game, and I don't think they really did a balance pass for like combat in the initial game matching up to like what it should be versus like what it is like 10 to 15 hours in. The thing that's noteworthy about
they don't build up to things. They throw you into the deep end before you even have all the good stuff. Is that what you're saying?
they really do. I found myself struggling for the first hour and a half of the game because it was so structured for you're supposed to play with this XYZ ability in mind, and that this is kind of the interesting draw of the game is that it is kind of third person dogfight stuff going on, but you have abilities. You have what's called rights that you have earned from your experience as a pilot working for the cult.
You have rights.
Yeah, RITES, not RIGHTS. Very different.
Okay. I was like,
so
rights.
Among the things you can do is that you can actually drift your fighter mid combat. So you can you push a button and your inertia keeps you going, but you can whip your ship around to target anything pretty much, which makes for some
Starbuck.
Yeah, it's kind of Starbucks stuff. So it feels like really cool to like be flying around, and if you're in really like tight corridors trying to dodge enemies and dodge fire, being able to drift around and target enemies that are charging after you feels kind of cool. You also there's like 5 or 6 different abilities that you get. I only had the first 2. The second one I got was like a teleport, like an Akuma style teleport where you teleport behind a dude. And you're kind of instantly lined up for a perfect shot on them.
Your whole ship?
Yeah, like your whole ship, you can just kind of appear directly behind an enemy and just wipe them out.
What does that mean?
Nothing personal?
Yeah, nothing personal.
Nothing
There you go.
personal.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, you know. You just you have an enemy just kind of doesn't have to be center screen, but you press B, and all of a sudden you just kind of teleport right behind them, and it's cool.
Dig it. I like that.
Yeah, no, the balance of the game again, it's really built for like really exploiting your abilities and understanding exactly how to pilot. And it does feel better as you go on. The variety of combat, there's not much variety to it. It's just really a lot of dogfighting and going around the maps and just finding stuff. This is very much a $40 game, and you feel it. Not
See, that's how
to
I would've
disparage it,
described-
but
I mean, that's fine. I mean, that's exactly how I felt about Aliens Fireteam Elite. It was priced appropriately, I think. You know what I mean?
It has some like cool like aspects to the game. Like your fighter that you unlock your like cult fighter a couple hours into the story. And your fighter has an AI named Forsaken that is judging you as you progress through the game. Because you abandoned him like 7 years ago, saying, "Oh, I'll be right back. I just need to have the heat die down for a while," and you just fucking abandoned him. But with the cult coming back, yeah, you need Forsaken to have a chance to stand up to the circle. The cult's called the Circle, and I don't know. It's like I've said, it's all sorts of all right. I've put about 6 to 7 hours into it. There is some light ship customization stuff going on. There's a lot of kind of go complete this quest, meet this character, get this randomized kind of item drop reward of various quality.
Yeah.
I think this is something I don't think Chris would say no to playing. I don't see myself finishing this game at this point.
Crispy, what's the word? Yes or no?
Man, no.
No.
It looks fine. Like it looks cool, and yeah, I like space stuff. But like, I think Elden Ring broke me.
Crispy doesn't like video games anymore unless it's Elden Ring.
Yeah.
That's fucking funny.
I'm still in a weird phase with Elden Ring. Like I can't think about
Anything
moving
else?
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think about
Have
the
you
next
have you
thing
finished it, or you're just still playing it, Crispy?
No, I haven't finished it yet. I
You-
mean, I'm at like
you-
90
you-
hours, but
Oh, you're probably like so far ahead of me.
uh,
I was gonna say if you want to do some co-op or something, just for funsies.
Hey,
you
you
should
know,
probably
I'm
do
probably,
that.
I'm probably at
absolutely.
your level. I thought I was like 45 hours in the game. I booted it up for the first time since I started playing Tunic the other night, and I was only at 38 hours.
Oh,
And I was like, oh my god, I am such a scrub. Yeah, what's wrong with me? I think that should say something about Tunic, maybe.
Yeah, going back to Chorus real quick. It's got some really weird things to it. The first and weirdest thing that I saw about it was that there is a permadeath mode in this game, which makes absolutely no fucking sense for how the balance of the combat works. Because I died
kinda
like
screwed
7 or
right
8
out of the
times
gate.
in that first hour just trying to figure out how to fucking shoot down
Hey,
fighters and stuff.
Tell that to the people on the planet where you killed everybody. That's
Yeah.
kind of permadeath.
The
for
billions
them.
of lives that you have, permanently
there you go.
ended. Yeah.
yeah,
There
that
you
wasn't
go.
cool.
No, it wasn't cool. They try to make the circle out like they're the necromongers from those Riddick films.
But
and they're
that
just like, yeah, that's what they're trying to go
that's your
for with this
touchstone.
fucking
Like
cult.
I don't know.
Those
Like,
Riddick
what-
films.
Yeah,
What should the
doesn't matter.
touchstone be?
I don't know. I don't know. Like I can't imagine. I don't know. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Maybe it is just exactly like the Riddick movies.
I will say
but
this.
I feel like Chris Davis is like sitting there playing this game and going like, man, those Riddick movies, like, because he's a crazy person. Like,
I mean, I've got no reference for like a fucking space cult.
no,
that's,
I
you're
don't know.
right. You're
I
right.
don't know if this is the same thing.
You're
but
right.
I've been
That's
playing The
not
Darkness.
fair. I just thought that was a really funny pull. I just
I've
thought you
been
were.
playing The Darkness, and I've on several occasions been like, damn, you know what? I really want to play those Riddick games. But that's the games. It's not the movies. It's the games.
Pitch
Yeah.
Black was okay.
Like,
Yeah, I
they,
mean, all those movies are just okay.
No,
Yeah,
like-
I've only seen Pitch Black. It
like
ended
Pitch
in
Black's okay. It's really funny that you take something like Pitch. I don't know. They really thought they had Alien. Like they thought they had the next Alien. And
They
were
really
like,
did, and then
we
decided-
gotta expand this and world build and like get crazy with it.
and they
know
world
what?
building.
I'll
They
say
turned
this.
it something
Well,
completely
cast that
fucking
new
different.
guy. What's his name? Carl Urban.
You know, I will say this. I think I enjoy the Riddick films more than the Fast and the Furious films. Of whatever,
Oh my
whatever.
God.
If we're talking about Vin Diesel,
Dude, I don't even think I don't even think I can agree with that.
I don't agree.
I don't
with
know,
that,
man.
no.
Maybe that just says how little I actually care about the Fast and the Furious films at this point.
I don't know.
You're
Sorry,
terrible.
I didn't mean to
man.
hijack the
I
conversation.
thought
Is
you
there
were
anything
into
else you want to say
kooky
about
things.
Chorus?
I think it's an all right game. I'm not compelled to finish it, and I'm kind of waiting for like that moment where it clicks and makes it feel really fucking good. Again, I like the drifting and like the abilities that you get for combat. You do feel powerful. I wish there was more variety of the combat and more like quest line,
Here's a question.
uniqueness.
And this is maybe a good like
Segue.
cap off to like this is a pretty all right space combat dogfighting game. What is the modern day high point for that genre? Like if you could just play one, like what
Modern
would it
day
be?
one that doesn't exist.
Yeah,
Doesn't
they
exist.
really don't.
There's no modern day high point. I know
That seems
some people.
crazy to me.
Okay,
I know some
just to-
people
like
Go-
this is not a traditional, this is a arcade style space combat dogfighter. Most of the market at this point with those kind of space combat games are more simulators like Elite Dangerous, like what they're trying to do with Star Citizen eventually, coming 2028, but
I hate to tell this to you. I hate to break this to you guys. I don't think that's coming.
I mean, that's why I said 2028.
It's gonna be abandoned all over again.
I
Anyways.
think that's a little rude to whatever. Anyway.
There, you might be right. All right, we need to move on.
No, back
before
to my
we-
citizen card, Nick.
people
I
like
will.
the Everspace games. I think.
Well, those are more sim bait, like
No,
simulators, aren't
those are less simmy. They're less simmy. If you want more of a dogfighter type game.
I did play that Star Wars Squadrons game. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Interesting enough, the founders of Fish Labs helped on Everspace. So
Oh, well, there
Well,
you go.
go. All right. Before we get on to questions, I just want to quickly, of course, bring up the biggest news that happened this week, and that's, of course, Sony finally unveiled what was kind of codenamed Project Spartacus, which was the upgrade to PlayStation Plus. We weren't sure if this was going to be a complete rebranding or if it was going to be if they were just going to kind of build on what they already have. And it seems like it's going to be now that it's been announced, we now realize that they're keeping the name PlayStation Plus. They're turning it into a 3-tiered service. They're basically rolling in PlayStation Now into PlayStation Plus and giving you the option between 3 different tiers. I just kind of wanted to get y'all's take on what this is. There's obviously a lot of conversation about like, is this their response to Game Pass? Does it even come close? That kind of thing.
I'll say this. It's not. It obviously is not the same thing as Game Pass.
And
But-
it never
but-
will be if
but-
they're not doing day and date releases with new.
Let me
With
let
new
me say
games,
this
right?
though. Why aren't they, right? If Game Pass is the greatest thing ever, Microsoft's just making boatloads of fucking money. Why is Sony not just copying that formula?
My assumption, Brad, is they're probably doing well enough
They don't
that
need to.
Yeah, that's my assumption.
But people say that like it's so profitable, it's the future.
But
Like it's the right
you know what?
way to do
Here's
it.
the thing, and my argument here is that, and personally, this makes sense to me. I've heard other people say this. I feel like I'm gonna get some pushback on this, but like PlayStation's focus for so long now seems to have been like they put all of their money into first party titles, and they're this like prestige, like The Last of Us 2, God of War, like the games that you just don't see the equivalent on Xbox. Xbox has been so focused on lifting up indies and getting all of these smaller studios to make smaller scoped games, which are great, but you don't really see like, you know, The Last of Us 2s, the fucking Death
God of War
Strandings,
2.
the, you know, God of War, you know, like you just don't see that on Xbox, and PlayStation has been leaning into that for so long, and I think that has created this kind of like ecosystem, this mentality of like we are like the quote unquote prestige platform, I suppose, in terms of first party games, and that is what we want to be. Like, so when you suddenly start giving them away for free as part of a service, it almost like cheapens it a little bit, and maybe they don't want to do that. And there was also heard there was a conversation I think they had on Kind of Funny this week where they were talking about the way that they finance these huge projects is they roll all this money into developing first party games, and then they end up selling like 12 million 18 million copies of a single game, and they use that to then fund the next project, and they just fucking leapfrog off of each other. But when you're giving stuff away on Game Pass, you're not raking in the same kind of money, so then you can't put as much money back into developing those kinds of games, so you would naturally just see those kinds of games kind of taper off or become less and less frequent.
Here's the other thing people don't really talk about is that there's like 50 million PlayStation Plus subs, you know,
right.
already, and which is like twice as many, like I think Game Pass subs is like at 25 million, and they're giving away fucking everything. You get like nothing with PlayStation Plus. You play your games online and you get a few dinky games a month, but like they don't. I feel like they didn't even need to do this.
Well, before we
needed
move
to
forward,
do this strictly from like a housekeeping perspective, like their services was just kind of a mess, and they needed to clean it up.
Well, they
Which is what
just
kind of
merged
done.
PlayStation Now and PlayStation Plus.
well,
Right, but they're also adding things like demos for.
But that was
let's
already
real-
part of
let's real quick-
PlayStation Now.
real quick, let's go through exactly what you get with each of these tiers, because I think we need to provide that context.
Okay,
So I've
let's-
got that stuff right here, if that helps.
I mean, sure. I have it here too, but if you
Okay.
know what you want to say about it, by all means, go for it. I
Okay,
don't want to
so-
I don't want to spend too much time going into specifics because the information's out there. But
Yeah,
like
yeah.
pricing
Well-
and general features, go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So there's 3 tiers. There's essential, which is basically what PSN was today. Okay.
If you have a PlayStation Plus account, you will be automatically moved to this format because it's exactly what you already have.
Exactly what you have.
Maybe less games. The wording makes it seem like you're getting 2 games a month
Okay.
when you currently get more than 2.
Yeah. Well, it says 2 monthly downloadable games. With the tier 2 is called PlayStation Plus Extra. The main benefit there is that you get, quote, a catalog of 400 PS4 and PS5 games.
Which we don't know what they are.
Which they won't
mean,
say what
We
they
don't know
are.
what they are.
That seems like a lot of games.
I mean, sure,
it
but
pr-
that's probably it's probably a lot of, if there's any first party in there, it's a lot of stuff that's been out for several years.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
sure.
I mean,
especially
it's
for
gotta
PS4
be way
games.
more than first party games for there to be 500 games.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying.
Maybe a lot of indies.
And that is a $5 extra markup on top of the base
It's
essential. plan.
It's $14.99 a month. By the way, I think it's
Yeah.
worth mentioning. You do end up saving quite a bit of money by doing the yearly, as opposed
Especially
to
on the
monthly.
top one, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the
So-
top one especially.
So the top one is called Plus Premium, and you get the 400 PS4 and PS5 games of the previous tier. But here's the thing: is that you also get 340 additional games, which is a catalog of, quote, PS1, PS2, and PSP stuff, and PS3 games, but only available via cloud streaming.
like what PlayStation Now is right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Does that
so
mean does this mean that Metal Gear Solid
PlayStation Now
4
doesn't
is
have
still
PS
It's still not
PlayStation
available. Yeah.
because the hardware is too different. They use that stupid cell thing, and they
Yeah.
can't get that stuff on a PS5 unless they come up with like a really good emulator. But people have been working on that stuff for years, and like the PS3 emulation is still like kind of iffy, and they're usually way better at it than
people who are, just not paid developers for Sony who don't have access to that original architecture have been developing emulators for years. That's the difference
they're
there.
fucking
Is that
better. They're better at it than like these first party people. It's always the truth. Like the people who make these emulators as a hobby are always doing like a better job than like look at Nintendo. They can't even emulate a 64 game on the Switch.
Brad, that's the difference between passion versus a job.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Which is what I'm saying. If PS3 is struggling in the hobby realm of emulation, then of course Sony's going to be struggling with it.
What's up, Nolan? You're raising your hand.
Yeah, so Brad, what was those numbers you said earlier about Game Pass accounts versus PlayStation Plus?
I think Game Pass is about like 25 million, while
Mhm.
PlayStation Plus is like 50 million.
So I was kind of curious. I looked it up for sales of PS4s and PS5s and Xbox Ones and Xbox Series S, whatever.
Oh yeah, it's a big difference.
So PS4s 117 million, PS5s 17 million. So that's like 134 million, right?
Yeah.
So 50 million is just under a third, right? Or just over
Yeah.
a third
Yeah.
of people with a PS4 or PS5 have PlayStation Plus. Xbox One is 51 million, and Series X and S
Talking
is
about
12
consoles.
million. Consoles. Xbox One versus and plus Xbox Series X and S is about 63 million. So it's under half. But around half. So I was kind of trying to look at like what are those ratios, right?
The
Of people
ratio is
who have
much
the
better.
service.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. It is.
But they have
Um,
PC too. You have to take into account
so,
PC.
so hold, yeah, but you do have to take into account PC. But I will also say that there are plenty of people out there who either who are console gamers who don't care about PCs and vice
Yeah.
versa. Like
Yeah.
I do not have an Xbox console. I have a 360 over there, but I don't have an Xbox console. I have PC, and that's how I play my Microsoft games. But where I was trying to go with that is when you look at, and it's I don't want to say what Nick was necessarily what Nick was saying. I mean, maybe it's true, but it seems like PlayStation is trying to cater to something, and I think their logic is, come whatever they say at the end of this year, uh,
This is launching in
God
June,
of
by the
War.
way. Oh yeah.
Okay, that's fine. God of War 2 comes out, right?
Right.
Yeah.
If you want to play that game, which a lot of people do, you're gonna have to buy it.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think it's one of those things where versus Xbox, because Microsoft has so many non-exclusive games, they have to like bring people into their ecosystem somehow.
Yeah.
They have to give that Game Pass option, because if you don't, well, then I'm just gonna go play. If I have to buy COD, or COD's a bad example. I'm trying to think what's something that recently came out day and
Halo
date
Infinite.
on Game Pass. Halo. If I have to play Halo, well, that's a bad example because that's an Xbox exclusive. I'm trying to think of something that's not an exclusive, like fucking Tunic or something.
Guardians
Tunic
of
is
the
a game
Galaxy.
that just came out.
Assassin's
Guardians of the
Creed.
Galaxy. Well, that's what I'm saying. There's plenty of games that come out multi-platform that you can quote play for free if you have Game Pass, versus PlayStation you can't, right?
Right.
But when you have those PlayStation exclusives, you have to buy it. And so,
Yes.
PlayStation is guaranteeing themselves that solid income versus the lower rate slowly over time. They're, like Nick was saying, they're working on those big boosts that they can then kind of put back in. And I'm not saying one's right or the wrong or whatever.
I think it's just two
like
different approaches.
Yeah.
And I
I'm
think
just
you
saying,
make a very
I
important
think it's
point.
working for them. Is what I'm
Yeah.
kind of trying to get at. It is definitely working, and if it wasn't, I do think Sony would be going the Game Pass route. But since they are doubling down and not going that route, it tells me it's working pretty well for them.
Also, I think it's I would this is going to sound weird. I mean, obviously, if they had a Game Pass equivalent and you could play God of War Ragnarok on day one as part of that service, that'd be great. Whatever. But the fact that they are taking two clearly very different approaches means these two ecosystems feel different and distinct, which means I could be in both ecosystems and feel like maybe I'm getting my money's worth in both because I'm not paying for the same thing in two different places. You know what I mean? So I kind of like this idea of them taking two very different but very valid approaches to their online services like this. I also think Noel makes a very good point, and this is kind of building off of what I was talking about as far as Sony having so many very, very strong first party exclusives when Microsoft has struggled with that historically speaking. I think
it's a different kind of game.
Yeah, I think Microsoft has an excellent ecosystem at this point with a lot of great games on it, but because everything is multi-platform and because so much of that stuff is not as like in your face and bombastic and like crazy as some of the stuff on PlayStation, they need that little extra stuff to kind of sweeten the deal to pull you into their ecosystem. And I think that's the purpose that Game Pass is serving. It's also elevating all of these indie games that might fly under the radar that, you know, without Game Pass might fail completely because they're not being tossed in people's laps essentially.
Things could change in the next few years though, because you're saying they don't have a Last of Us, but they have a Starfield now. You know?
They do. They absolutely do.
They're gonna have an Elder Scrolls. And
this whole that kind of brings up a good question, Brad. So, you know, I was saying that, you know, the argument from PlayStation side is they have all these exclusives. People, if they want to buy them, they're paying $60 or $70 to get them, right? Microsoft doesn't really have that, but now, since they've been acquiring more and more studios, they are going to start having that. So the question then becomes: is Microsoft? I mean, obviously they're not going to be like, "Hey, we're getting rid of Game Pass," or "Hey, we're not going to launch this game."
Shooting themselves in the foot.
That's what I'm saying.
So that's what I'm saying. Are they going to start? You have to pay more now. You have to do all this stuff because all of a sudden now they have all these exclusives that they aren't getting $70 from however many million people day one. They're getting $1 a day or whatever, whatever Game Pass costs at the end of the day. So is it going to shoot them in the foot and then they're going to have to raise prices, which might turn some people off from this platform, or they're going to realize, they're going to realize that, oh shit, it's only this much more, or whatever. I'm already in this ecosystem, or I don't want to buy this thing, so I'm just going to pay the extra $5 because it's just $5 more. But when, like you said, 25 million people are paying $5 more, that's a lot more dollars.
I think, like Brad kind of said, I think in like 2 years it'll be interesting to see what PlayStation Plus looks like, because this feels like kind of like the natural like first step towards something bigger. But this feels like pretty much kind of like, okay, this is the bare minimum. This is what you needed to do. We've all kind of expected this. We've wanted you to do this just as a bare minimum because your services have been kind of a mess.
People wanted God of War day one, not PSP games. I wanted PSP games. What PSP games are we going to get?
You're missing what I'm saying. I'm saying like people, before we even knew Project Spartacus was a thing, people have wanted them to improve their online service in general for a long time. Because PlayStation Now and PlayStation Plus, having them as two separate things has just been incredibly confusing, and it's weird, and the messaging is all muddled. So this is like the bare minimum, like finally bringing those things together and setting the foundation for like maybe building to something bigger and better. But we'll have to wait and see. You know what? I will also say I wouldn't be surprised even if you can't play God of War Ragnarok day one on PlayStation, the new PlayStation Plus. I bet you'll be able to play a demo for it. Like, I bet you'll be able to try it. You know what I mean? Like, play the first like hour of the game, and then if you decide to buy it,
they've been doing that trial stuff for years.
I know, but like think of all the people who may not who are like, I'm interested in God of War, but like I don't know if it's for me. Like, you just need that extra little bit of push to get there, like being able to just say, okay, I can go play the demo as part of this service and not worry about shelling out $70 to find out I don't like it. Like, that's a selling point. It's obviously not as great as play the whole game day one and as part of the service, but it's the selling point.
Yeah.
Anyways, we need to move on because we have covered a lot of ground tonight. I want to get to questions.
So hold on. I know I'm kind of getting into the weeds, but I was just kind of curious. I was like, as an example, Elden Ring, pretty popular selling game. You know, you would argue that a game of selling of that content will probably be pretty, obviously not as high, but pretty close as a God of War or another PlayStation.
I mean, they've sold
exclusive.
12 million copies, which is...
That's what I'm saying. So I kind of looked it up, and who knows what these numbers are, but it says approximately 27% were PS5 and 13% were PS4.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so that's 40% of the games sold were on a PlayStation console, right?
Right.
At $70 approximately a pop, that's $336 million that Sony made by not giving away the game for free. You know what I'm saying? Because I was just saying, like, equivalently, if, you know, Xbox raised their prices by $5 a year or something, that would net them like 125 million versus a single game for Sony that netted them, you know, obviously taxes and all this other stuff, like 300 million. So that's what I'm just saying. I'm saying I know to an extent, like I said, don't get me wrong, I would love to have, you know, PlayStation Plus come with day-and-day games. That would be great. But unless Sony has a reason, when Sony's getting their paycheck, you know, it works for them.
But you know, this is obviously going to be something that's going to evolve over time too, and who knows if we'll ever get to that Game Pass equivalent. But I think right now it's kind of fine not being the direct competitor. But I don't know. We'll see where it goes. Who knows? All right. So I want to answer a couple questions from our listeners out there, guys. So if you listen to this show, if you're listening to this on your iPod or phone or whatever, and you're like, I have a question, you can ask us. Just email us at questions@4playernetwork.com, or
they're listening on their iPod, Nick.
I have an iPod, bitch.
I have an iPod.
No, you don't.
I do. I will take a picture of it and send it. I had every day.
I want you to take
iPod
a picture
every
with
day?
it, Nick. Oh, what you can't.
I have an iPod in my car that I then take into my office and I listen to music on it. I have my
I have an
entire
iPod-
music library on my iPod.
I have an
Wait, why
iPod
is it not
Nano
on
Gen
your
4
phone?
that I have
Because
to
I
use
have-
for my car.
It is not on my phone because I have way too much music to fit on my phone.
Oh,
That's
okay.
that's fine. So yeah, that's
So it's
fine.
all like,
yeah.
okay.
I have a small. It looks like a tiny iPhone, which is without the phone functionality. But anyways, neither here nor there. If you want to submit a question, you can also do it through Discord by going to the submit a question thread. I usually make a thread for each episode. So our first question tonight comes from Haste. Haste says, regarding the combo about Tunic's map, this is more of a comment. Let's question, because we talked about the map last week too. But he just wanted to point out that, like Tunic's map, Silent Hill 1, 2, and 3 did a really great job of adding those active amendments to your map, with the protagonist scribbles on the doors that you've checked and paths that you've gone down and stuff like that. And he thinks the polar opposite of this, the worst implementation of something like this, would be Jet Set Radio Future. Does anybody here know what he's talking about? I mean, I know what the game is, but
I know the game, but I don't know the.
I don't remember the map being. I mean, I don't remember much about the map at all. So, but he just wanted to point that out. But we did spend a lot of time talking about the map.
You know what I want to say? One of the best games with a map with scribbles on it. Does anybody know what I'm gonna say?
Scribblenauts?
No.
Etrian Odyssey?
That game did not have a map that you could scribble on.
But it had the word scribble in it, so I could see where his heart was. Okay,
sure. Okay.
Etrian Odyssey.
No, Phantom Hourglass.
Oh yeah.
Phantom Hourglass, because it was on the DS, had a map functionality where you could scribble notes and stuff like that.
Oh, I didn't know.
And there were puzzles that were involved, but like you had like, oh, the island that you're on is like the shape of this or stuff like that. But it was one of the, I mean, obviously, you know, on the DS, it's one of the best implementations of just being able to literally scribble. And I wish more games did stuff like that. But I remember that having a really unique system of like just being able to go on there and make notes and reminders and stuff.
That's a good
and
call.
unlike,
I forgot about that.
obviously a lot of games nowadays, you can just like place down markers and stuff. But well, what does that marker mean? The fact that you literally write a little note in the game, I always liked.
Yeah. Good call. Good call. Our next question, this is an actual question, comes from the Drunken Merchant. It says, with the epic announcement of Rick and Morty crossing over with Rainbow Six,
God.
What?
what's an actual crossover you would love to see happen in what genre of game?
I think they nailed it on this one. I've always wanted to see
This is an actual thing
Rick and
that's happening?
Morty.
It's real, and I hate it.
They should put some
It's
some
like-
licensed characters into Fortnite.
Yeah, right. That would be. They could make some money doing that.
Yeah, they could.
But yeah, it's like they have a costume that looks like Rick, and they have a costume that looks like Morty, and both of them come with like big mascot heads that are like the characters' heads. And I don't know, there's a bunch of green portals on stuff.
It's what Tom Clancy envisioned. What can I say?
Yeah.
I mean, what hasn't been done? Though? Everything's been in video games. Everything's been in Fortnite.
I mean, he uses this as an example, but like the first thing my brain always jumps to. I'm not a huge I'm not really into the crossover idea as much as some people are, because I'm a boring schmuck. But Bayonetta and Devil May Cry always seems like the most obvious, because like it seems like they were all practically made for that kind of thing, and it would be cool to see those characters interact, I suppose. He mentions Persona and Final Fantasy. Is that a thing that some people want to see crossover frequently?
No,
very different things.
We've already had the Final Fantasy Disney crossover.
I could see a Final Fantasy game that was a Persona style. So it's a Final Fantasy world, and you are like a mage or a warrior that is going to school or something like that.
That was the Type 0, I think, right? It was kind of Persona-y, I think.
Was it any good though?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So that, but good is what I'm saying.
Sure. Final Fantasy's never been that stylish, that's for sure.
No.
I've always wondered why Capcom never put the time to make a like Mega Man crossover game, considering they put out like 80 bajillion of those.
I mean, what are you talking about? Mega Man's in all the Marvel vs. Capcom games.
Well, no, I'm talking about like
Smash.
Like talking about the original run, X and ZX and all of them, Legends.
Marvel vs. Capcom vs. Namco or whatever, the strategy RPG games. Mega Man's been in those too.
Yeah.
With like Kiryu. Mega Man and Kiryu. It's pretty cool. Weird series.
All right. I got a couple more quick questions here.
I just want Kiryu and Tekken, please.
Kiryu and Tekken. All right.
They won't let him though because he doesn't hit women.
They should put the Great British Baking Show in Fortnite.
Ooh.
You should be able to run around as Paul Hollywood.
You have achieved a light.
Are you sure that hasn't happened? I
don't know.
Zero build, zero bake.
Thanks to the Great British Baking Show,
get the Hollywood handshake.
I got to introduce Robin and her mother to old Greg for the first time.
Fielding?
You mean the Mighty Boosh?
The Mighty Boosh?
Yeah, but they had never heard of old Greg, and I was like, I'm about to blow your mind.
I was surprised because I've seen basically every episode of Great British Baking Show multiple times. That's a fantastic show if you haven't seen it. I'm surprised how long it took for Noel to bring up old Greg. He was on that show for like 3 seasons before it got
sick of it.
No, I'm sure he is, but it's not like someone was like, "Hey, old Greg." He actually brought it up. And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." But the funny thing was, because I was not in the Great British Bake Off or Baking Show, whichever one you want to call it, early on. I didn't get into it until like a couple of years ago. I got sick. And so as I was in bed for a couple of days, I had to watch something. So I pulled that up. But it's funny because Bernadette used to watch it. And I walk in and I'm just walking past her watching the show. And I was like, "Hey, old Greg." And she was like, "What?" Because she didn't realize, I guess, that Noel Fielding was old Greg. Yeah, it was pretty funny, just like her reaction. Like realizing.
I think it was Nolan who told me that that's old Greg.
Man, you should watch.
Somebody.
Noel Fielding was on a season of Taskmaster, and it was one of the best seasons.
Oh, I have seen a couple of those episodes.
It's really good.
A pretty good show.
Yeah. It's a really good one.
Reining this back in, a couple more questions. Yeah. Next, we have a question from Tack. It says, I'm from Alabama. Guys, I just want to remind you, if you send in a question, we'd love to learn more about you. Let us know where you're from. Maybe tell us what video game you're playing. Share your pronouns. Whatever you want to do, we love to learn more about you. So share it with us. We'd love to hear it. Tack from Alabama says, as far as I'm aware, none of the usual podcast guys here are into the cosplay scene. Assuming budget was not an issue, who would you cosplay as at a convention?
The Dung Eater.
Yeah.
the loathsome Dung Eater.
Well, Brad has done a Grey Warden before, so I don't know if that counts. Man, you can tell by how quickly we jump on examples.
You dressed up as a little Grey Warden.
So I mean, I've done a couple of cosplays in the past. You know, some light stuff. But that's tough. I mean, it's always one of those things where you can go the easy route. Like let me cosplay as Hitman. I just put on a suit and a red tie.
Yeah.
There is
That's
photographic evidence
the
out
style I
there of me.
gravitate towards that.
Yeah, there's photographic evidence out there of me playing as Bill from Left 4 Dead.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
forgot about that.
How many times did you say pills here?
I had a whole thing of ibuprofen that I brought with me. Yeah.
I've done some like Halloween stuff, but what's up, Crispy?
I pick Rambo Rawl.
Rambo, what is that?
Rambo Rawl?
Yeah.
God, I don't even know. I don't even want
from Gundam.
Yeah, from Mobile Suit Gundam. Like one of the coolest characters in Mobile Suit Gundam.
Yeah.
Fucking dies like a badass.
I ordered some Gundam Blu-rays the other day, actually.
Ooh.
Yeah, the Thunderbolt films, and then 8th MS Team.
So honestly, Nick,
you'll like
to honestly answer this question, the reason I've never gotten into the scene is it's very expensive. Yes. Mainly because I wouldn't want to like put on a jacket and the good thing. I would want to go all out. You know, I would probably. I do own a sewing machine. I am able to sew. I am a 20th century man. Yeah, dude, I sew all the time. I tailor my own clothes if I need to.
Oh man, me and some former roommates used to do a bunch of Ghostbuster stuff.
With your Ghostbuster stuff,
yeah, we all had Ghostbuster cosplays, and like like my roommate made the fucking car. He's had 2 versions of that car at some point. And we used to yeah, it was so fun.
Y'all were good. Yeah, like I said, y'all would go out places and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was fucking fun as hell.
Yeah, but like the reason I'm trying is like I would get way too into it, and I'd probably spend way too much time and way too much money. And like you said, you were up till 2 a.m. the other night working on that Tunic puzzle. That would be me every night, like trying to perfect cosplay. And that's one of the reasons I don't let myself get into something like that, because I do feel like I would really dive into it.
As someone who has dated somebody who is very into the cosplay scene and watched what that has done to them, just the stress of trying to get everything perfect and everything, especially if you're trying to do it in time for like a con or something, man, I think that pretty much talked me out of it. Like right there, because it was stressful just watching.
So when I was younger, my mom, we would go to like Renaissance festivals, the Renaissance Fair, and I would dress up as a Robin Hood, wearing tights and like all this stuff. But like my mom would actually like make the outfit and stuff like that. And so like seeing like how much effort it goes into like, you know, sewing and measuring and needles, and you know, you have like you have your little pin cushion with the needles, and you holding it fucking in your mouth as you're trying to like pin stuff on and doing all this stuff. Like it's not the, you know, it's like almost like a Dunning-Kruger thing, where it's you look at someone in a cosplay and you're like, oh, that's super easy, I could do that, and you start working on it, and then you realize how fucking stupid you are, and like how difficult it actually is to do it well. Because it's one thing to just take a piece of fabric and wrap it around your waist and be like, it's a kilt, but then you know, you didn't actually stitch it well, so it just fucking falls off, or you didn't hem the edges properly, or you know, the button you only use like, you know, the thread you use was, and so there are so many things that could go wrong. That like all the props to like cosplayers with how much effort it goes in.
I will say this. I think this is probably the obvious answer, but if we're talking specifically about if you want to say like budget's not an issue or whatever, I think the only character I would ever really be comfortable cosplaying as Dexter, or be enthusiastic, would be Dexter. But like if you're talking about budget, I would go like, it wouldn't be for like a con. It'd be for like doing like, you know, people who do like the cosplay who then do like the elaborate like photo shoots, and I would make like just a, you know, I would pump a bunch of money into doing like a crazy looking kill room or something, and then do like a photo shoot with it. Like that would be cool. I would do that probably before I ever considered like dressing up in cosplay and going to a con. But yeah, that would definitely be my answer.
All that being said, I would say, like, I don't know how many people have done this. I'm sure plenty have, but I've only seen one post online about like the cosplay medic or whatever he was called, and he would just go around cons with like, glue and needles and
Yeah.
thread and all this other stuff, and
Yeah.
help if people's costumes had an issue. He would help repair them.
Yeah,
So
not
like
all
props to
heroes wear
someone like that.
capes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, we had two more questions, but I can see both of these maybe going along, and they were both late entries. So to Cracknecker and Zero Skies, I see your questions. I'm going to carry them over to next week. We're running a little low on time tonight, so we will answer them next week. But I do see them, so I appreciate your questions. For now, though, it is time to wrap up the show with the 4-player minute. And we've been keeping these shorter by focusing on, final thought, whatever you want to say, whether it's a hype, sweat, thank you, fuck you of the show. Brad, would you care to start us off?
Sure. My final thought will be, hey, did we ever talk about the Quarry, Nick? The new
No, we
game
didn't. We didn't.
from Supermassive.
Supermassive.
Is
You're
this-
the big Supermassive fan, Brad.
I just wanted to say here that I've been playing some House of Ashes. It's been tough because I don't have a lot of time to play with Malia, and that's how we kind of play it. So I've only had kind of like one really good session with it, but I find it interesting that people are like, "Oh, finally, another one like Until Dawn." When they've been, making these kinds of games, they just haven't been all that great. And to assume that all of a sudden, because this one is longer and not short,
No.
that
I
maybe
don't
it'll
think it has
be
to do with
great.
length necessary. I think it has to do with this project, this anthology series they've been doing. As it's more about like taking the same amount of money they would normally put into a single game and spreading it out, spreading it thinner. So like, and you can see that being spread
But
thinner
I mean, the way game
on these
development
games.
works is it's gonna get spread thin anyways.
Which is, it's just adding gas to the, gas to the fire, I suppose. The Quarry seems like it's independent of this Dark Pictures anthology bullshit, and
Which
I
I
don't know.
will say that Dark Pictures is something that's going to keep going apparently, um, and apparently it's been somewhat successful for them. I think people should, if they're excited about the Quarry, should keep a positive attitude about the Dark Pictures going forward because apparently it's been getting better. House of Ashes has similar issues to the previous games in some ways, but it's already like more interesting because it's actually just like dudes going and getting fucked up by like monsters, kind of like aliens or whatever. And
I find it interesting that that's the thing that like ends up working for them. Like, because of all the things that they've done so far, I thought this one looked like the most uninspired that
well, I
they've done.
mean, it's just the previous ones have been like dumb ghost bullshit where
But that's what I
it's
want. I want dumb ghost bullshit.
well, the question is like, is it even
And
real?
Little Hope
You
was
know,
supposed to be like Silent Hill, man. Like that feels like a direct homage to Silent Hill, and I can't even get through it.
I just want to wrap up by saying that from what I've heard from like multiple people and the vibe I really get playing these games is that a lot of the things that is awkward about the Dark Pictures games is I think because they were designed to be played multiplayer. Like the first option in the menu is don't play alone. Like they want you to play this multiplayer. They were designed as multiplayer games, and so few people actually play that way. And I bet it's a it's a more interesting experience, and I feel bad because in reality this anthology thing, this multiplayer thing, it's actually really ambitious, and everyone just sort of brushes it off and doesn't play it the way that they want. And maybe it's, that's part of that's on them, but it's just unfortunate that they're kind of just going to go back and do the really safe, we'll do another Until Dawn because people really aren't giving these games a fair shot, which is me. Hopefully maybe one day me and Nick, maybe it'll be the next one, me and Nick will play one of these multiplayer because
Dude,
maybe
I would love to see that.
I would
that's
love
the
to.
magic. Maybe that's the magic. I don't know.
All right.
Anyways, that's all.
Well, we have another one of the Dark Pictures anthology games coming out. Is it before the Quarry or after the Quarry? I don't
know. There's several more still coming.
I believe it's called The Devil in Me.
Yeah. Which, you know what? That sounds like my jam. I'll play that.
Yeah.
But I also do want to try this one that you're playing now. My first instinct when I saw it was like, maybe it looks the least interesting, but I hear that's not the case. I hear it's maybe one of the best that they've done. So, Chris Davis, why don't you go next?
I guess my final thought is just kind of stress over stuff to play right now. I chose to play Chorus partially because Carlos started playing it and he liked it, but more so that I kind of felt like we needed something else to talk about on the show.
As opposed to Elden Ring.
Well, as opposed to Elden Ring, Tunic, and Ghostwire.
Hey, today was
Yeah.
the first
Why
time we
would we
talked about
talk about good
Ghostwire.
games?
Yeah, I just trying to get some variety in there because we talked about.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, and I don't want to say I made the wrong choice in playing that instead of Ghostwire, but I kind of feel that. Not
Or you
not
could
to,
play Kirby.
I mean I would have to dust off my Zelda machine, and I no, thank you, I'm good.
Okay, there's a lot more on that than just Zelda.
Oh yeah,
You know
but I bought it as a Zelda machine, and that's what I consider it to be. So
Okay.
Fair enough.
the
All right,
last
Mom.
the last Switch game I played was new Pokemon Snap, I believe.
Hey man, the last 2 Switch games that I've tried to get into, I feel like I've kind of struck out. I'm hoping that switching to English on Triangle Strategy will help, but like I put down Pokemon Legends. I just couldn't get into it, and Triangle Strategy I'm struggling with for different reasons. And I'm desperate to find something that I can play on my Switch and enjoy. I have Crosscode sitting on my Switch. Oh, also Eastward. I stopped playing Eastward because that game was kind of dull mechanically speaking, I suppose. But you know, I just want something for my Switch, man. It's a dope ass system when it hits. I just need to find something that like resonates with me,
Yeah.
I guess.
I mean, the next 2 games I really want to play are games that I've technically played before. Like Chrono Cross is getting its remaster thing
I
next
am looking
week.
forward to that.
There you go, Nick. There you go. That's
Yeah.
good for your Switch.
It is.
And then Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe comes out at the end of April. And Stanley Parable's a really fucking good game. So, but yeah, there's
Fair
really
enough.
nothing other than like Ghostwire that I want to play right now, and I'm kind of sweating that.
Cool. Then you know what? Play some fucking Ghostwire. I definitely do recommend it, despite the fact that maybe I sounded a little lukewarm on it. I'm definitely going to keep going with it. It's pretty cool. Crispy, do you care to go next?
Sure. I don't know if you guys were aware of this, but Heart Machine Games announced Hyper Light Breaker,
Yeah, I saw
Yes.
that.
a follow-up to Hyper Light Drifter, which was
I
a
still
game
haven't played that.
which was a game that I rather enjoyed. And Hyper Light Breaker, instead of being an isometric like top-down action game, is going full 3D third-person action game, and it looks like it's gonna be fully co-op as well.
Mhm.
The description mentions teaming up with friends or playing solo and taking on the different bosses, which I guess they call crowns. And it looks really fucking cool. And honestly, I'm getting the first thing that jumps to my mind is Risk of Rain, because the description they put out for it specifically mentions like trying out different builds and stuff. Risk of Rain's really cool. I mean, any
It's a
sort
shame
of
none of us played their last game that came out last year.
Which one was
Oh
that?
yeah. Yeah, I
The
know.
cloud surfing one.
Yeah.
Oh, right. That no one remembers the name of, though, apparently.
Wait, that
But I can
wasn't
picture
Jet
it.
Harsh, or was it?
No,
No.
the cloud surfing one. I don't remember.
I am definitely is Hyper Light Drifter is a game I should probably play at some point. I own it.
For sure.
I should probably play
Yeah.
that.
Sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Play it on your Steam
Ooh.
Deck.
I think it's fun.
Ooh, shit.
But yeah, Hyper Light Breaker looks pretty fucking cool. Can't
Hell
wait.
yeah.
Can't wait to learn more about that. But I mean, it's not coming out till next year, so it's gonna be a little while. You have a hoverboard? You have a fucking hoverboard? Like,
Can't go wrong with hoverboards, man.
that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. The character in the trailer's like fucking jumping around with a lightsaber staff. That's like a pike. That's pretty cool. I don't know, man. Looks pretty cool. Looks like it could be pretty cool.
Be cool.
Sold.
Also, in the
Alright.
non video gaming realm, I started reading BPRD, the
ERD.
yeah, the spin-off, the Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense, the spin-off series from Hellboy.
Hmm.
and
I know that was the thing.
like I've been meaning. Oh yeah, and it's been going on. It's been going on for years. Yeah, I don't know. It's like I've always wanted to get into Hellboy comics. I never have, and a friend of mine has been really like, "Hey man, you should read Hellboy." Like he like got a new fucking tabletop RPG based on Hellboy, and is like, "Oh, we should play this game. You should read a bunch of comics to brush up on the lore." And I started reading, and I just want to say it's really, really, really fucking cool. It's really
Awesome.
neat. It's like the X-Files but cooler.
X-Files, but cooler. All right, that sounds dope. Did they make a movie? No, they didn't. They didn't make a movie about that. There was something else.
No, but the Hellboy
was thinking-
movies are about
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
the Bureau.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
This is like it becomes its own title. Like at a certain point in the story, Hellboy leaves and like goes
Yeah.
and does his own thing, and then this is like this picks
After
up.
that,
Yeah,
gotcha.
it's really cool.
Cool beans. Nolan, your turn.
So my what are we calling this segment again?
It's still
Final
4-player minute.
thoughts?
Just however you want to spend your 4-player minute. It's up to you.
So I'm gonna do a combination thank you and fuck you to my friends and family who visited last week. So it was a lot of fun. I mean, most everyone here knows them. Precious, and her husband Ryan, and our friend Franco. So it was nice having friends and family in town. Was a pain in the ass leading up to it because no one had been in our house in almost 2 years. And so while I am not a hoarder by any means, I definitely had not been keeping up with the place. And so it definitely, it's one of those things where, a few extra boxes here, whatever, but it took like a good 3 weeks of just kind of slowly cleaning the house. It's just like, we moved in and then a year later the pandemic happened. And so,
Yep.
I mean, we had, I think I hung, I want to say like 35 things on the wall, like photos on the wall, something, honestly, probably more than that. Just like so much effort into like kind of getting the house ready for company. We had to, guest bedrooms that weren't furnished at all. And that the reason that's relevant is it kind of ate into my video game time. And not in the sense that I didn't have time to play games, but it was more so I was mentally and physically exhausted. And so when you're mentally and physically exhausted, you don't want to play Elden Ring. That's a game that's like
Yeah.
you got to be in it. And so so as of now, I'm only like 20 something hours into Elden Ring. Not because I don't love the game. I fucking love it. It's fantastic. But like even now that those friends and family are gone, I'm now post them being here kind of exhausted. And so like
Yeah.
as soon as they left, I'm like, all right, here I go. And I sit down and I'm like, I don't want to play
I'm
Elden
exhausted.
Ring. Like I'm
Yeah.
tired. I want so I play some Tunic, but that's even still a little heavy, just because you're thinking a lot. And so I'm just like so the past like almost month I've barely played anything. But now that process is kind of over and I'm kind of getting back to the norm, I am definitely excited, to have a very nice, clean, furnished house that looks great because everything got ready. And so the house looks great. And so now that I don't have to worry about that, I can get back into like gaming. And so now I'm very much excited. And that's kind of why I brought up, hey, if Crispy or Nick, if you want to do some co-op to kind of help ease myself, back into Elden Ring before I start,
definitely do.
just jump in solo and get my access. Like literally, I'm in front of a fog door in the game right now to a boss I have not even fought yet. So I don't even know how hard the boss is gonna.
Yeah, where is it?
It's the one that's in the castle to the north. I forget the one with all the hands.
The manor. The manor.
Carrion Manor.
Yeah, Carrion Manor. Thank you.
If it's the fog door I'm thinking of, yeah, you're gonna have a time.
No, if it's
no.
Loretta,
I think maybe Loretta. Yeah.
Have you gone in the room at all?
Loretta's easy.
It's there's a door. It's a big arena that clearly when I go in there's going to be a boss fight.
Are there a bunch of chairs around the edge of the arena?
Yes.
Yep.
It's like it's like a pool of water with chairs.
Hey,
it took me a while to do
the
that
manor. You have no problem with that boss.
Yeah, that boss.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I'd be happy to help you if you want.
Well, I'm just saying, like it's one of those things where while I do love getting my ass handed to me by Elden Ring, I don't know if I'm mentally in a place to do that at the moment. So while I'm still up for playing the game, like, what's up, Crispy?
if you're playing a strong int build,
I'm not.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I was gonna say there's a really great sword you can farm from exactly where you are.
If I could respec, I probably would go more int. But right now I'm super high dex, and I've just recently started putting more points into int.
You can't
But
respec.
yeah, not yet. I know there's a boss later on that if I beat them, I think I can respec, but I can't yet.
Also Hogwarts.
I don't know what that means, Brad.
Stop calling it Hogwarts.
Oh,
That's so stupid.
It's not Hogwarts. Stop it.
Where, are you
Uh,
talking about the manor? Wait, what?
No, the
no,
academy.
he's talking about Ray Lucario.
Oh, Ed. You know,
Hmm.
I had that same thought. I just got to that place
I know.
yesterday for the
I know
first
you
time.
did.
Shorthand. It's just shorthand.
I
Anyway,
mean,
that's
my
4-player minute.
services
That
are
went way
available for
long.
co-op. I'm a level 148.
No, stop talking about Elden Ring. We gotta stop talking about Elden Ring.
Yes, I agree. Let's move on.
My
Honestly, the
4-player
funny thing
minute-
is now that we're not doing this a minute anymore, my minute's gone way longer than we used to do it as a minute.
well, it's always been a minute.
That's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, but all of ours came down, so it averaged out.
There you go.
My 4-player minute starts now. I have two kind of final thoughts. One, I wanted to talk about E3 because we didn't really talk about it a lot on the actual show itself. In that they announced today that E3 2022 is canceled completely, no physical or digital event. Not entirely surprising considering what happened last year, and the pandemic is still not where it probably should be for events like that to be happening. So not entirely surprising that they canceled it. It's still kind of a bummer, especially when you consider that the reaction, the swift reaction, and by everyone seems to be, oh, rest in peace, E3, it's over, blah blah blah, which I think honestly is a bit premature because they are, you know, the ESA is talking about wanting to come back in 2023 with a big like new physical / digital event. I'm hoping it takes a different shape and that maybe this is just ushering in a new era of E3 because as much as I understand, like I'm enjoying these past couple of years of not going to E3, to be totally honest. I needed the break, I think, and I was never going to let myself not go to E3 as long as it was happening. So the pandemic kind of forced my hand, and I've been enjoying not having to devote like a whole week of vacation time to going to E3, even though I love going to E3. Love and hate. But you know, there's also been this notion that the Summer Game Fest is replacing it, and it's just that's a silly idea to me. Like because there's so many great memories that you know even of this group going to E3 together and just having so much fun together. I'll cherish those memories forever. It's amazing, despite how good or not good the actual show ends up being every year. It's been a blast going to cover it. And when you're doing a Summer Game Fest like that, you know, I'm excited for the announcements that come with it, but it's just not the same. It's just not the same. So personally, I hope E3 comes back in some form at some point, and I hope I haven't gone to my last E3, but obviously I want that to happen when it's safe and responsible to do so. So I think they made the right call.
For sure.
My other really quick thought was I thought we were kind of coming down. We're going to have a little bit of a lull period for game releases. And then I found out that Weird West came out today on Game Pass. So I've already installed it. And I'm interested to play. This is like ex-Arcane developers making like a supernatural, isometric Western, what's the word I'm looking for? The genre, God, what do you call Dishonored? What's the genre of Dishonored? Somebody help me out.
Dishonored Lex.
Like open world or
Oh, God,
exploration or
No, there's a
First-person
term
action.
for it. It's like
Simulation or
something with the word
Simulation.
simulation in it. Somebody
Video
Immersive
game.
sim.
Video game.
Gleeger in chat says immersive sim. It's an immersive sim. It's a supernatural Western immersive sim from the guys who used to work on Dishonored at Arcane. So it's available on Game Pass. I'm super excited to try it. I'll probably talk about that on an upcoming show. So just wanted to get that out there. And with that, guys, that is a wrap. That is our show tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening. 4playernetwork.com is, of course, our website. Check it out. You can find all of our podcast episodes there. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to patreon.com/4player, or you can subscribe on Twitch. We appreciate it either way. And, of course, regardless of whether you have money to throw at us, if you want to just be a part of the community, discord.gg/4player is the place to be. We're always in there, always hanging out, always talking about games. And, yeah. thank you for listening. Thank you guys for being here again.
Hey, thanks for having us, Nick.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
You're welcome.
We'll be back next week with a new episode, guys. Good night.
Bye.